presented by Soundlibra.com. Explore more titles via the link in the description or at Soundlibra.com. Welcome to The Listening Edge. I'm Alex, and today we begin an incredible journey.
And I'm Lisa. We're so excited to dive into a skill that touches every part of our lives, yet so many of us overlook.
Before we jump in, a quick disclaimer. While we'll be discussing the psychological and emotional aspects of communication, this podcast is for educational purposes and isn't a substitute for professional mental health advice.
That's a great point. So, Alex, what exactly is this listening edge we're talking about?
Think about it, Lisa. We spend so much time trying to figure out how to speak better, how to present ourselves, how to get our point across. But what if the real superpower, the true edge in life, lies not in speaking, but in listening?
That's a powerful thought. Most of us probably think of listening as just hearing what someone says. It's passive, right? Something that just happens.
Exactly. And that's where we get it wrong. True listening, the kind that gives you an edge, is anything but passive. It's an active, conscious, and incredibly profound skill. It's about understanding. It's about connecting. It's about building trust. And frankly, it's a superpower that can transform your relationships, your career, and your understanding of the world around you.
So, this podcast series is going to be all about unlocking that superpower?
Precisely. Over the next episodes, we're going to explore what it truly means to listen. We'll break down the science, the art, and the practice of excellent listening. We'll look at how this often unseen skill can be the difference maker in everything from a difficult conversation with a loved one to a high-stakes business negotiation.
I'm already intrigued, because I know I'm not always the best listener. Sometimes my mind wanders, or I'm already thinking about what I want to say next. It's a struggle.
And that's incredibly relatable. Lisa, you're not alone. In fact, that's one of the first things we'll tackle. Why is listening so hard? Why do we often fall short, even when we think we're paying attention? This episode, Tuning In, the unseen superpower, is all about setting the stage. We're introducing the core idea that listening is not just a skill, but a transformative force.
We often hear about communication being a two-way street, but we tend to focus on the talking lane. You're saying the listening lane is where the real magic happens?
Absolutely. Imagine a conversation like a dance. One person steps forward, the other responds. But if the responder isn't truly paying attention to the first dancer's move, the dance falls apart. It becomes disjointed, awkward. Great listeners are those who can not only hear the steps, but anticipate the next move, understand the rhythm, and truly feel the music of the conversation.
That's a beautiful analogy. So, what are some of the foundational elements of this active, superpower listening that we can expect to learn about?
Well, it starts with something fundamental, shifting your intention. Most people listen to reply. They're waiting for their turn, formulating their argument. The person with the listening edge listens to understand. Their primary goal isn't to be heard, but to genuinely grasp the other person's perspective, their emotions, their needs.
Listen to understand, not just to reply. That feels like a critical distinction.
It is, and it leads to a cascade of other powerful skills. We'll explore how to tune out distractions, both external, like the buzz of our phones, and internal, like our own preconceived notions or worries. We'll delve into the art of truly receiving information, not just processing it. This means paying attention to not just what is said, but how it's said.
So, the tone of voice, the pace, the hesitations?
Exactly. And we haven't even touched on the nonverbal cues yet. The body language, the facial expressions, the subtle gestures. These often speak louder than words, and a truly skilled listener picks up on these signals to gain a richer, more complete understanding. It's like reading between the lines, but without assuming anything, and with a genuine curiosity to confirm.
This sounds like it requires a lot of mental focus and presence.
It does. And that's why we'll talk about mindfulness and presence in listening. It's about being fully where you are, with the person you are with in that specific moment. It's about setting aside your own agenda, even if just for a short while, to create a space where the other person feels safe to be open and heard.
And you mentioned empathy. How does that fit into this superpower of listening?
Empathy is at the heart of deep listening. It's the ability to step into someone else's shoes, to feel what they might be feeling, even if you don't agree with their situation or their perspective. It's not about pity, it's about understanding. When you listen with empathy, you're acknowledging their emotional reality, and that creates an incredible bridge of connection. People feel seen, validated, and understood on a level that goes beyond just the surface meaning of words.
So, it's about validation. Letting someone know that their feelings or experiences are real and acknowledged.
Precisely. And this leads to incredible trust. When people feel truly heard and understood, they're more likely to confide in you, to seek your advice, and to build a stronger, more resilient relationship with you. Think about it. Who do you trust more? The person who interrupts you, dismisses your feelings, or tells you what you should do? Or the person who patiently listens, asks clarifying questions, and truly tries to see things from your point of view?
Definitely the latter. It makes you feel valued.
It absolutely does. And this applies everywhere. In our personal relationships, listening builds intimacy and resolves misunderstandings. In our professional lives, it's crucial for effective leadership, team collaboration, customer service, and innovation. Imagine a leader who truly listens to their team's ideas and concerns. That leader fosters loyalty, creativity, and better problem solving.
So, this isn't just about being polite. This is about actively acquiring information, building relationships, and achieving better outcomes in all areas of life.
That's the essence of it, Lisa. It's a practical skill with profound implications. We're going to equip you with actionable strategies. We won't just talk about what good listening is. We'll show you how to do it. We'll cover techniques like paraphrasing to ensure you've understood correctly, asking open-ended questions to encourage deeper sharing, and even the strategic use of silence, which is surprisingly powerful.
The power of silence. I'm already thinking of times I felt uncomfortable with pauses and rushed to fill them.
That's a common tendency, but those pauses can be fertile grounds for reflection, for deeper thought, and for the other person to elaborate. We'll show you how to embrace those moments. We'll also address common barriers to listening. Things like judgment, impatience, the urge to interrupt, and even our own biases. Identifying these barriers is the first step to overcoming them.
So, this first episode is really about introducing the concept and the potential. It's the what and the why before we get into the how.
Exactly. We're establishing the premise that listening is an actively cultivated skill, a superpower that we all possess but often leave untapped. It's the foundation upon which all future learning in this series will be built. Think of it as tuning your radio to the right frequency. Until you're on the right frequency, you're just getting static. We're helping you find that clear signal.
And what a powerful signal it is. I feel like I'm already starting to listen differently just by thinking about it.
That's the magic. The awareness itself is the first step. This series is designed to be a practical guide, a journey of discovery. By the end of it, you'll have a toolkit of techniques and a fundamentally different perspective on communication and connection. You'll understand that great listeners don't just hear, they understand. They don't just respond, they connect. They don't just get by, they win. They have, in essence, the listening edge.
The listening edge. I love it. So, for anyone listening, this is just the beginning. We've opened the door to this superpower, and there's so much more to explore.
Indeed, this is just the first step on our path to becoming truly exceptional listeners. We're thrilled to have you all with us. Next episode, The Listening Divide, Why We Fail to Hear. Welcome back. Last time, we explored the superpower of effective listening. Now, we're tackling the listening divide, why we fail to hear.
It feels like there's a huge gap between just hearing sounds and truly listening.
Precisely. That gap is often due to internal distractions, habits, and societal pressures that encourage us to talk more than listen.
So, what's the biggest hurdle?
The most pervasive issue is internal distraction. Our minds are busy with to-do lists, what to say next, worrying about the future. This mental chatter acts like static, drowning out the speaker.
I can relate. My mind leaps to errands or emails mid-conversation. It's like multitasking that just causes us to drop the ball.
Exactly. This is autopilot listening. We're physically present, but mentally absent. Imagine trying to cook while watching an action movie. Your focus is fractured.
So, autopilot listening means we miss nuances and emotions, just hearing words but not the message.
That's it. And this autopilot mode is fueled by our biases and preconceived notions. We listen for things that confirm what we believe or filter out challenging information. Our brains try to fit new data into existing frameworks.
So, we're not just receiving information, we're shaping it based on our perspectives. That must lead to misunderstandings.
Absolutely. It's like looking at a painting through tinted glasses. If we have a bias that someone always complains, we might hear their concern as trivial whining instead of genuine issue.
And the urge to interrupt? That feels like a huge barrier.
The urge to interrupt is powerful. It often stems from wanting to share our own idea, offer a solution, or relate our experience. We jump in before they finish.
When we interrupt, we imply what we have to say is more important. It derails the speaker and can make them feel unheard.
Precisely. It's a habit that damages trust. We're so focused on formulating our response that we stop truly listening.
It's like waiting for our turn to speak, rather than listening to understand. This also relates to selective listening, right?
Exactly. Selective listening is a cousin to autopilot listening and bias. We pick up on keywords, ignoring context. Imagine reading only headlines and thinking you understand the story.
And it's not just individual habits. You mentioned societal pressures. What are those?
Our society often rewards those who speak up, who are assertive. Meetings, classrooms, social gatherings, the loudest or most frequent speakers often get attention. There's less emphasis on being an exceptional listener. It's a quiet strength.
So, there's a cultural inclination towards valuing output, speaking, over input and processing.
That's a very insightful way to put it. We're encouraged to have opinions, share expertise, be the one with the answer. This creates pressure to talk, to fill silence, rather than listen.
It's a feedback loop then. We're distracted by our thoughts. Our biases filter what we hear. We interrupt, listen selectively, and society often values speaking over listening. It's no wonder we struggle.
It's a complex web, and recognizing these barriers is the crucial first step. We've discussed autopilot listening, biases that filter understanding, the urge to interrupt, and societal pressures.
So, for our listeners, the listening divide happens because our minds are busy, autopilot listening. Biases distort what we hear. The urge to interrupt cuts speakers off. Societal pressures can favor talking over listening.
Exactly. All these factors mean we fail to truly hear others. But acknowledging these challenges is the start of overcoming them. In our next episode, we'll move to building skills with Active Listening 101.
Sounds like an essential next step.
It absolutely is. We'll learn techniques to bring focus back and override those habits.
Fantastic. So, we've identified why we fail to hear. Next time, we learn how to bridge that gap.
We'll delve into concrete strategies to truly connect with what others are saying. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered passive listening and autopilot. Now, let's explore active listening.
If passive listening is like having the TV on in the background, active listening is like being engrossed in a captivating documentary. It's about fully engaging with the speaker and understanding their message. So, what are the building blocks of active listening?
Let's start with the very first step, paying attention. This sounds simple, but it's surprisingly challenging. Active listening demands your full concentration. It means putting aside your own thoughts, your to-do list, and any immediate desire to formulate your response. You're present.
So, it's not just about not interrupting, but actually directing our mental energy towards the speaker?
Precisely. It's about focused attention. Imagine you're meeting a friend for coffee. They're sharing something important. Are you mentally planning your grocery list? Or are you truly looking at them, hearing their words, and trying to grasp their meaning? Active listening means choosing the latter. This involves minimizing distractions. That means putting your phone away, making eye contact, if culturally appropriate, and positioning yourself to hear clearly.
That makes sense. It's about creating an environment where listening can actually happen. What's the next key component?
The next crucial element is showing you're listening. This is where nonverbal and verbal cues come in. Nonverbally, it's nodding your head, maintaining an open posture, and mirroring the speaker's body language subtly. These signals tell the speaker, I'm with you, I'm engaged.
And verbally?
Verbally, we use short, affirming sounds and phrases. Think of things like uh-huh, I see, or go on. These aren't interruptions. They are confirmations that you are following along and encouraging the speaker to continue. They act as little bridges, showing you're still on the listening path.
So, it's like giving little verbal nods to keep the conversation flowing smoothly, rather than letting silence create a gap.
Exactly. These encouraging interjections are vital. They demonstrate that you're not just passively absorbing information, but actively processing it and are ready for more. Now, following that, we move to providing feedback. This is where we begin to process and confirm our understanding.
This sounds like the part where we start to vocalize our comprehension, right?
Yes, and there are two powerful techniques here, paraphrasing and summarizing. Paraphrasing is restating what the speaker has said in your own words. It might sound like, so, if I understand correctly, you're saying that your main concern is, this isn't just repeating, it's interpreting and confirming. It gives the speaker a chance to clarify if you've misunderstood something.
Ah, that's so important. It shows you've genuinely tried to grasp their meaning, not just heard the words.
And summarizing is similar, but usually covers a larger chunk of information. After a longer explanation, you might say, so, to recap, the key issues you've raised are X, Y, and Z. Does that capture it? Both paraphrasing and summarizing are powerful tools for ensuring accuracy and demonstrating deep engagement.
It's like a double-check system for understanding. You're not just nodding along. You're actively demonstrating that you've processed the information and are seeking clarification if needed.
Absolutely. And hand in hand with this is deferring judgment. This is perhaps one of the most difficult but essential aspects of active listening. It means listening to understand the speaker's perspective, even if you don't agree with it, before forming your own opinion or offering advice. We tend to jump to conclusions or prepare our counterarguments while the other person is still speaking.
That's a tough one. Our brains are wired to evaluate and react. How can we practice deferring judgment?
It requires conscious effort. Remind yourself that your goal in this moment is to understand, not to win an argument or immediately solve a problem. You can train yourself by saying, I hear your concern about X. Let me make sure I fully understand your point of view before I share my thoughts. This creates a space for open communication. It's about suspending your own biases and assumptions temporarily.
So, it's about creating mental space to truly absorb what the other person is feeling and thinking without immediately filtering it through our own experiences.
Exactly. And this leads us to the final key component, responding appropriately. Your response should be thoughtful, sincere, and relevant to what the speaker has shared. It should reflect that you've listened, understood, and considered their input. Active listening isn't just about receiving information. It's about fostering a connection and responding in a way that respects the speaker and the conversation.
This ties back to the idea of building rapport that we'll likely explore later in the series. Your response shows you value their contribution.
Precisely. So, let's recap the core elements of active listening we've covered today for our listeners. First, paying attention, giving your undivided focus. Second, showing you're listening, using both nonverbal cues like nodding and brief verbal affirmations. Third, providing feedback, using paraphrasing and summarizing to confirm understanding. Fourth, deferring judgment, listening to understand before evaluating. And fifth, responding appropriately, offering a thoughtful and relevant reply.
These are the foundational pillars of active listening. It's not just about being quiet, it's about a dynamic process of engagement, understanding, and thoughtful interaction. It's about moving from that passive, autopilot mode to a state of genuine connection.
And the beauty of these skills is that they're transferable. Whether you're in a personal relationship, a professional setting, or even just a casual conversation, mastering active listening will dramatically improve your communication and your connections. It truly is a superpower in a noisy world.
It's about making the other person feel heard, understood, and valued. And that, Alex, is the heart of effective communication.
Well said, Lisa. In our next episode, we'll take those foundational techniques we've discussed, paraphrasing and summarizing, and dive deeper into their power to clarify and build understanding. Next episode, the power of paraphrasing and summarizing. Welcome back. Last time, we covered active listening foundations. Now, let's tackle paraphrasing and summarizing.
That's right, Alex. We learned that active listening isn't just about not interrupting, it's about making the speaker feel heard and understood. And today, we're going to focus on two powerful techniques that really solidify that feeling for the speaker: paraphrasing and summarizing.
Exactly, Lisa. These aren't just fancy words. They are essential tools for anyone who wants to master the art of listening. Think of them as your personal understanding check system. They confirm you've not only heard the words, but grasped the meaning.
So, let's start with paraphrasing. Alex, can you break that down for us? What exactly is it, and why is it so important?
At its core, paraphrasing is restating what the speaker has said in your own words. It's like taking their message, filtering it through your understanding, and then presenting it back to them. For instance, if someone tells you, "I'm really overwhelmed with this project. I don't know where to begin," you might paraphrase by saying, "So, if I'm understanding correctly, you're feeling swamped by this project and a bit lost about how to get started?"
I see. So, you're not just repeating their words, but you're showing them that you've processed what they said and are trying to confirm your interpretation. This is so much more than just a nod and a smile. It actively signals, I'm paying attention, and I'm trying to get this right.
Precisely. And this offers immediate benefits. First, it ensures accuracy. Sometimes we think we understand, only to realize later we missed a crucial detail. Paraphrasing catches those misunderstandings early. It's a safety net for communication.
That's a great way to put it, a safety net. Because I know I've been in conversations where I thought I understood, but then later realized I was completely off track, and that could lead to all sorts of problems.
Absolutely. Second, it shows respect and validates the speaker's experience. When you take the time to rephrase their thoughts, you're telling them, your words matter and I value understanding them. This can significantly build trust and rapport. Imagine someone is sharing concern, and you respond with, "It sounds like you're feeling frustrated because X happened, and that's making you worry about Y." That person is much more likely to feel heard and open up further than if you just said, "Uh-huh, yeah."
It's like giving them a mirror to see their own thoughts reflected back at them, but through your ears, so to speak. It helps them clarify their own thinking sometimes, too.
That's another excellent point, Lisa. By rephrasing, the speaker might even catch nuance or refine their own thoughts. They might say, yes, that's exactly it, or they might say, well, it's not just that, it's also. It creates a dynamic where both people are co-creating understanding.
So, to recap paraphrasing, it's restating in your own words. It ensures accuracy. It shows respect and builds trust, and it can even help the speaker clarify their own thoughts. How do we do it effectively? Any tips for our listeners?
Great question. Keep it simple. Start with phrases like, so, you're saying, it sounds like if I'm understanding you correctly, you feel, or what I'm hearing is. The key is to be concise and stick to the speaker's main points. Don't add your own opinions or interpretations unless you're explicitly asking for clarification. Your primary goal is to confirm you've grasped their message.
Got it. Simple phrases, focus on their message, confirm understanding. Now, what about summarizing? That feels a bit broader than paraphrasing. How does it differ, and when do we use it?
You're right, summarizing is broader. While paraphrasing often focuses on a specific statement or idea, summarizing condenses a larger chunk of information. Think of it as taking the key points from a longer conversation, a presentation, or even a whole meeting and boiling them down into their essential elements.
So, if summarizing is about capturing the main points of a longer discussion to make sure everyone remembers the important parts.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's about capturing the essence, the main takeaways. You'd use summarizing at the end of a discussion, at the end of a section in a presentation, or when a speaker has shared a lot of information. It's a way to wrap things up and ensure everyone is on the same page about the overall message.
And the benefits would be similar to paraphrasing, but on a grander scale?
Exactly. Summarizing reinforces understanding of the larger picture. It helps consolidate information, making it easier to remember. It also provides a clear conclusion, preventing important points from getting lost in a sea of details. Imagine a brainstorming session where many ideas were shared. A good summary at the end ensures everyone remembers the agreed upon actions or the most promising ideas.
I can see how that would be incredibly useful in professional settings, but also just in everyday conversations. Sometimes, after a long talk with a friend, a quick so, we've agreed to meet at 7 on Friday and we're bringing snacks is incredibly helpful.
It absolutely is. And just like paraphrasing, summarizing demonstrates engagement and attentiveness. It shows you've been tracking the entire conversation and can identify the crucial elements. It's a powerful way to signal, I've been with you all the way and I've grasped the big picture.
How do we effectively summarize? Any starter phrases for that?
For summarizing, you might use phrases like, so, to recap, we've discussed, the main points we've covered are, in short, the key takeaways are, or, to sum up, the most important things to remember are. When you summarize, focus on the core themes and outcomes. Avoid getting bogged down in minor details unless they were critical to the main point.
So, if I were to summarize our discussion on paraphrasing and summarizing today, I'd say we've learned that paraphrasing is restating a speaker's message in your own words to confirm understanding and show respect, often using phrases like, so, you're saying? And summarizing is distilling the main points of a longer conversation or piece of information to reinforce understanding and provide a clear overview, using phrases like, to recap, we've discussed. We also highlighted how both techniques build trust, ensure accuracy, and can even help clarify thoughts for both the speaker and the listener.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. You've perfectly captured the essence of what we've covered. And that's exactly what we want our listeners to be able to do. These techniques, paraphrasing and summarizing, are not just about being a good listener. They're about being an effective communicator and a valuable contributor in any interaction.
They really do elevate your listening skills from passive reception to active engagement. It transforms a conversation from a monologue or a series of disconnected statements into a collaborative dialogue.
And remember, like any skill, they get easier and more natural with practice. Don't be afraid to try them out, even if it feels a little awkward at first. The positive impact on the quality of your communication will be worth it. They are bridges of understanding, helping to connect speaker and listener more deeply.
Bridges of understanding. I like that. Paraphrasing is like building a small, sturdy bridge to ensure you've crossed the stream of their immediate thought accurately. Summarizing is like building a main highway to ensure everyone understands the route and destination of the whole journey.
Excellent imagery, Lisa. So, to recap our recap, we've emphasized how paraphrasing involves restating specific points in your own words to confirm comprehension and build rapport. We've also shown how summarizing distills larger conversations into their core messages, ensuring clarity and retention. Both are powerful tools for active listeners.
And they truly are superpowers in our personal and professional lives. They help prevent misunderstandings, foster deeper connections, and lead to more productive conversations.
Absolutely. So, practice these techniques throughout your week. Notice when you use them and how people respond. You'll likely be surprised at the positive impact. Next episode, empathic listening, stepping into their shoes. Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Last time, we honed our skills in paraphrasing and summarizing, ensuring we truly grasp what others are saying. Today, we're diving into one of the most profound aspects of listening, empathic listening.
Empathic listening. It sounds powerful, Alex. We've talked about understanding the words, but this feels like it goes deeper, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, Lisa. If active listening is about understanding the message, empathic listening is about understanding the person behind the message. It's about stepping into their shoes, feeling what they might be feeling, and seeing the world from their perspective.
So it's not just about hearing or even understanding the logic. It's about connecting emotionally.
Exactly. Think of it this way. Active listening is like being a meticulous scribe, capturing every word and its meaning. Empathic listening is like being a fellow traveler, walking alongside them and experiencing the journey, even just for a moment. It's about acknowledging and validating their emotions, not just their facts.
That makes sense. We often listen to respond or to fix a problem. Empathic listening, then, is about acknowledging the feeling first.
Precisely. And it's crucial to distinguish it from sympathy. Sympathy says, I feel sorry for you. Empathy says, I understand how you feel, and I'm here with you. Sympathy can create distance. Empathy builds bridges.
Ah, I see the difference. Sympathy can sometimes feel a bit distant, like you're looking down on someone. Empathy sounds more like you're on the same level, sharing the experience.
That's a great way to put it. And why is this so important? In our relationships, whether personal or professional, empathy is the bedrock of trust and connection. When someone feels truly understood, they are more open, more willing to share, and more likely to trust you.
So, in a challenging conversation, instead of jumping in with solutions, an empathic listener might first acknowledge the other person's frustration or sadness.
Yes, imagine a colleague is overwhelmed with a project. Instead of immediately saying, here's how you could do it faster, an empathic response might be, wow, it sounds like you're feeling incredibly stressed and overwhelmed right now. That must be extremely tough.
That would probably make them feel much more heard and less alone. It creates a safe space for them to then perhaps explore solutions.
It absolutely does. It diffuses tension and opens the door for genuine problem solving rather than defensiveness. So, how do we cultivate this skill? It's not something we're all born with, or at least not always in practice.
That's what I'm wondering. What are some of the first steps we can take to become more empathic listeners?
The first, and perhaps most vital, is genuinely wanting to understand. You have to be curious about the other person's inner world. Set aside your own agenda, your own judgments, and just be present. Be fully there with no distractions.
So, that means putting away the phone, closing the laptop, and making eye contact?
Absolutely. It's about giving your undivided attention. And while you're listening, try to tune into their emotions. What is the underlying feeling beneath their words? Are they feeling anxious, excited, disappointed, or hopeful?
That can be hard. Sometimes people express anger, but underneath they might be feeling hurt or scared.
It can be challenging, and that's where practice comes in. Try to look for clues. It's not just the words, it's the tone of voice, the body language, the energy they're projecting. Remember when we discussed nonverbal cues? This is where they become incredibly important for empathy. Does their voice tremble? Do their shoulders slump? Are they avoiding eye contact or making intense eye contact?
Right? So we're piecing together a fuller picture. The words are only part of the story.
Exactly. Another key technique is to reflect back not just the content, but the feeling. So instead of just saying, so you're saying you're frustrated, you might say, it sounds like you're feeling a lot of frustration about this situation. Notice the emphasis on feeling frustration.
That's a subtle but important difference. It puts the emotional state front and center.
It does. And this acknowledgement of their feeling is incredibly validating. It communicates, I see you and I understand what you're experiencing. This isn't about agreeing with them. It's about understanding their emotional reality.
So, if someone tells me about a problem they're facing and I empathetically listen, I might say something like, that sounds really discouraging. Or, I can imagine how exciting that must be for you.
Perfect. You've got it. You're acknowledging the emotional component. Sometimes, you can even use phrases that show you're trying to imagine their experience. If I were in your shoes, I might feel, or I can imagine how that would make you feel.
That's a good way to signal that you're trying to connect. It also feels less like an assumption and more like an exploration.
It does. And it's important to be genuine. Empathy cannot be faked. If you're just going through the motions, people will sense it, and it can be off-putting. True empathy comes from a place of care and a genuine desire to connect.
What if we can't relate to the emotion? What if their reaction seems completely out of proportion to us?
That's a fantastic and very common question, Lisa. This is where empathy truly gets tested. You don't have to agree with their reaction, nor do you have to feel the same emotion yourself. Your job as an empathic listener is to understand their feeling from their perspective. You might think, I wouldn't react that way. But instead of letting that judgment block you, try asking yourself, why might they be feeling this way? What are their experiences, their beliefs, their sensitivities that might lead them to this emotion?
So, it's not about judging their emotion as right or wrong, but understanding its origin for them.
Exactly. It's about exploring their frame of reference. This can be incredibly difficult, especially when dealing with intense emotions or conflict. But even trying to understand, even if you don't fully succeed, can make a huge difference in how the other person feels heard.
It sounds like this is a skill that requires a lot of self-awareness too. We need to manage our own reactions and judgments.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is key to empathic listening. Recognizing your own biases, your own emotional triggers, and how they might be influencing your ability to listen to someone else. If you find yourself getting defensive or judgmental, that's a signal to pause and check in with yourself. Is this about them, or is this about me?
And what about silence? We touched on it in previous episodes, but does silence play a role in empathy?
Oh, immensely. Empathic silence is powerful. Sometimes the most empathic thing you can do is simply be present with someone in their emotion without trying to fill the space. A quiet, attentive presence can convey more understanding and support than 1,000 words. It gives the other person space to process their feelings and to share more if they choose.
So, we've talked about undivided attention, tuning into emotions, reflecting feelings, being genuine, understanding their perspective, and embracing silence. It sounds like a lot to remember.
It does, but let's break it down. The core of empathic listening is about connection and validation. Remember these two words, connection and validation. You're aiming to connect with their emotional experience and validate its importance to them. And remember the difference between sympathy and empathy. One can create distance, while the other builds bridges.
Connection and validation. I like that as a takeaway. It really distills the essence of it.
Indeed. So, to recap for our listeners, empathic listening goes beyond just understanding the words. It's about stepping into someone else's emotional world, attempting to understand their feelings and perspective without judgment. We cultivate it by being present, paying attention to nonverbal cues, reflecting emotions, being genuine, and understanding their frame of reference, even when it differs from our own. And powerful, supportive silences are often more effective than trying to fill the void.
It's about being a fellow traveler, not just a scribe. I feel like this is where true deep listening begins.
You've hit the nail on the head, Lisa. Developing empathic listening skills takes practice, patience, and a genuine commitment to understanding others on a deeper level. It's a skill that will profoundly enrich all your interactions. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Last time, we dove deep into empathic listening, learning to truly step into someone else's shoes. Today, we're talking about the language that often speaks the loudest, even when no words are spoken, the language of the body.
It's so true, Alex.
We spend so much time focusing on what people say, but so much of communication happens without them even opening their mouths. It's like a whole secret conversation going on alongside the spoken one.
Exactly, Lisa. And that's why understanding nonverbal cues is absolutely crucial to mastering the listening edge. These cues, our facial expressions, our gestures, our posture, even our tone of voice, they reveal our true feelings and intentions, sometimes more accurately than our words ever could. Think of it as a subconscious broadcast constantly transmitting information.
So, it's not just about hearing the words, but about seeing and feeling the unspoken message. How can we start to decode this body language?
The first place to look is often the most expressive part of our face, the eyes. Our eyes can convey a vast range of emotions. Think about it. Wide eyes can express surprise or fear. Narrowed eyes might suggest suspicion or intense focus. And a direct gaze, when held appropriately, can signal confidence and honesty. Conversely, avoiding eye contact can sometimes indicate discomfort, dishonesty, or shyness.
That makes sense. I've definitely noticed how much a person's eye contact can affect how I feel about what they're saying. If they can't even look at me, it's hard to feel like they're being fully present or truthful.
Precisely. Now, beyond the eyes, we have a whole other language of fleeting expressions on our face. These are quick, almost involuntary displays of emotion. A quick flash of a smile might betray genuine happiness, while a barely perceptible frown could suggest underlying disapproval. The key is to be observant, to notice these subtle shifts.
Those fleeting expressions, that sounds tricky to catch. Are there other facial cues we should be paying attention to?
Absolutely. Consider the overall set of the jaw, the tension in the forehead, or even the movement of the eyebrows. A tightened jaw can signal stress or anger. A furrowed brow often means confusion or concentration, and raised eyebrows can indicate surprise or disbelief. By observing these, we can get a clearer picture of the emotional state someone is experiencing.
So, it's like building a puzzle, where each facial cue is a small piece that contributes to the overall image.
That's a wonderful way to put it, Lisa. And this puzzle extends beyond just the face to our hands and body, our gestures. Hand gestures can either emphasize our words or contradict them. Open palms, for instance, are often seen as a sign of openness and honesty. Fidgeting, on the other hand, like tapping fingers or playing with an object, can indicate nervousness, boredom, or impatience.
I used to get so distracted by fidgeting hands, I'd almost miss what people were saying. But now I understand it might just be a sign they're a bit anxious, not necessarily that they're not engaged.
Exactly. And this understanding helps us practice patience and empathy. We can also look at the way people hold themselves, their posture. Slouching, with shoulders hunched inward, often signals a lack of confidence or a desire to withdraw. Standing tall, with open posture, can convey assertiveness and self-assurance.
I've noticed that too. When I'm feeling confident, I tend to stand up straighter and feel more open. When I'm feeling self-conscious, I tend to hunch a bit. It's like our body is broadcasting our internal state.
It really is. And this broadcasting is even more powerful when we consider our tone of voice. This goes beyond the words themselves. Is the voice rapid and high-pitched? That might indicate excitement or anxiety. A slow, low tone could suggest sadness or thoughtfulness. A sharp, clipped tone might signal irritation or impatience.
Tone of voice. That's a big one. Sometimes someone can say, I'm fine, but their voice is heavy and flat, and you just know they're not.
That's a perfect example, Lisa. The sincerity of their message is entirely undermined by their tone. So, when we're listening, we need to tune into the music of their voice, not just the lyrics. We're looking for congruence. Do the words, the tone, and the body language all tell the same story? When they don't, that's often where the most important insights lie.
So, to recap, we're looking for cues in the eyes, facial expressions, microexpressions, gestures, posture, and tone of voice. And importantly, we're looking for how these all align or if they contradict each other.
Precisely. This is also where we tie back into our episode on empathic listening. Understanding nonverbal cues is a vital tool for empathy. When someone is expressing sadness through their slumped shoulders and downcast eyes, even if they say they're doing okay, your ability to see and acknowledge that nonverbal signal allows you to respond with genuine compassion. It shows you're not just hearing their words, but truly seeing their struggle.
It helps us respond to the underlying emotion, not just the surface statement. So, how do we practice this? It sounds like a lot to take in.
The best way to practice is to start consciously paying attention. Next time you're in conversation, try to notice one or two nonverbal cues. Don't try to analyze everything at once. Just pick one thing. For example, focus on the other person's hands. Are they gesturing? Are they still? Or focus on their posture. Are they leaning in or pulling away?
That's a great way to start small, like a listening exercise boot camp.
Exactly. And as you become more comfortable, you can expand your observation. You can also try this in low-stakes situations first. Watch people in a park or on a bus. What can you infer about their mood or their interactions just by observing their body language? This builds your observational muscle.
I can imagine that observing couples interacting, for instance, would be incredibly insightful. Seeing how they mirror each other's movements, or if there's a disconnect.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about becoming a mind reader. It's about gathering more information to build a more complete and accurate understanding of the other person. Sometimes a nonverbal cue might suggest something, but the words will later clarify it. Our goal is to use nonverbal information to enrich our understanding, not to make assumptions.
What if someone's body language seems to be saying one thing, but their words are saying another? This is where it gets tricky, right?
That's where the skill of questioning comes into play, which we'll cover more in future episodes. But for now, if you notice a significant disconnect, you might gently inquire. You could say something like, I noticed you seemed a bit hesitant when you mentioned that. Is everything okay? This opens the door for them to explain the discrepancy. You're not accusing them of being dishonest. You're expressing your observation and concern.
So, it's about observing, interpreting, and then using further communication to either confirm or clarify. It sounds like a dynamic process.
It truly is a dynamic dance of communication. And mastering this dance will elevate your listening skills dramatically. You'll be able to pick up on subtle hints, understand unspoken needs, and build deeper, more authentic connections. People will feel truly heard and understood by you because you're listening not just with your ears, but with your eyes and your entire awareness.
It really brings home the idea that listening is an active, engaged process. It's not passive reception.
Not all. And as we conclude this episode, the key takeaway is this: the body communicates volumes. By tuning into facial expressions, gestures, posture, and tone of voice, you gain a richer, more nuanced understanding of what others are truly conveying. This awareness not only makes you a better listener, but a more perceptive and empathetic human being.
So, make a conscious effort this week to observe the nonverbal signals around you. Pay attention to the silent conversations happening all the time. It's a superpower waiting to be unlocked.
Next episode, we'll explore the art of asking the right questions. Welcome back. Last time, we explored decoding nonverbal cues. Today, we're focusing on asking the right questions.
Asking questions seems simple, but there's a huge difference between just asking and asking effectively. Sometimes I feel like I'm just filling silence or asking questions that don't get me closer to understanding.
You've hit the nail on the head. Asking questions isn't just gathering information. It's Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Last time, we honed our skills in asking the right questions. Today, we're going to explore something that might seem counterintuitive in our fast-paced world: the strength of silence.
Silence. It can feel awkward, can it, Alex? Like we're supposed to fill every gap with sound. But you're right, it's a powerful, often overlooked tool in listening.
Exactly, Lisa. We live in a culture that often equates silence with awkwardness or a lack of engagement. But in listening, silence isn't emptiness. It's a space. It's a space for reflection, for deeper thought, and for the other person to gather their own thoughts.
So, we're not talking about just zoning out or letting the other person ramble on endlessly. We're talking about intentional pauses, right?
Absolutely. Think of it like this. When you're cooking, sometimes you need to let a sauce simmer. It's not that nothing is happening. Things are developing and melding together. Silence in conversation serves a similar purpose. It allows ideas to simmer, to deepen, and to become richer.
That's a great analogy. So, how can we, as listeners, deliberately use these pauses? What's the first step?
The first step is to recalibrate our perception of silence. Instead of mentally scrambling to fill it, try to see it as an invitation. An invitation for the speaker to elaborate, or for you to process what's just been said. When someone finishes speaking, take a beat. Just a natural, unhurried pause.
And what often happens in that beat?
Often, the speaker will feel more comfortable continuing. They might add a detail they initially omitted or clarify a point because they've been given that mental breathing room. It shows you're not rushing them, and that you're truly giving them space to express themselves fully. This is a cornerstone of both active listening, where we process information thoroughly, and empathic listening, where we need to understand the nuances of someone's feelings.
So, by not immediately responding, we're actually encouraging them to say more and perhaps more importantly, to say what they really mean.
Precisely. And it's not just about encouraging elaboration. Silence also gives you, the listener, a crucial moment to process. Think about it. We often hear information, and our brain immediately starts formulating a response, an opinion, or a counterargument. We're not fully absorbing the message anymore.
Oh, I know I do that. I'm already thinking about what I'll say next while they're still talking.
It's a common trap. By consciously pausing, you give your brain a moment to catch up. You can mentally review what was just said, identify the core message, and consider how it lands with you emotionally and intellectually. This isn't about stopping the conversation. It's about ensuring you're truly listening and understanding, rather than just waiting for your turn to speak.
So, it's about giving ourselves a moment to digest, like chewing our food properly before swallowing.
That's a perfect way to put it. Chewing your food thoroughly helps you taste it better and digest it more easily. Similarly, a pause helps you digest the speaker's words more effectively. This pause also signals trust and attentiveness. It demonstrates that you value what they are saying enough to take a moment to truly consider it.
This feels particularly important in moments where the conversation is getting a bit heated or when someone is sharing something difficult.
Absolutely. In conflict situations, for instance, emotions can run high. When someone is upset and expressing their frustration, your immediate instinct might be to defend yourself or offer a quick solution. But a well-timed silence, followed by a thoughtful response, can be incredibly de-escalating. It communicates, I hear you, I'm taking this in, and I'm not just dismissing your feelings.
It's like offering a soft landing instead of a hard shove.
Exactly. And when someone is sharing something vulnerable or deeply personal, silence can be a profound act of empathy. It allows them the space to express their raw emotions without feeling judged or rushed. It signals that you are present with them in that moment, fully experiencing their vulnerability with them.
So, to recap, the strength of silence in listening allows us to encourage elaboration from the speaker, give ourselves time to process information, and signal trust and empathy.
You've got it. Now let's talk about the flip side of this, what we might call the tyranny of the immediate response. When we consistently talk over pauses or respond too quickly, we send a message that we're more interested in our own thoughts than in truly understanding the other person. This can shut down communication and create a superficial connection.
It's like building a very thin wall between people rather than a bridge.
A very thin wall indeed. And this rush can also lead to misunderstandings. Because we're not taking the time to fully absorb, we might misinterpret what's being said or miss crucial nonverbal cues that accompany their words. Remember our earlier discussions on nonverbal communication? Silence gives us that precious extra moment to observe those subtle signals.
It's true. Without that pause, I might miss the slight hesitation, the shift in posture, or the flicker of an expression that could completely change the meaning of their words.
Precisely. So, how do we practice this? One technique is simply to count to 3 in your head after the speaker finishes. It feels like an eternity at first, but it's hardly noticeable to the other person. It's just enough time for your processing to kick in. Another is to consciously focus on your own breathing. When you feel the urge to speak, take a slow, deep breath instead.
Counting to 3, that's so simple, yet feels so impactful. And focusing on breathing, that's a grounding technique for ourselves too, isn't it? It keeps us present.
Exactly. It keeps you grounded and centered in the listening process. When you're breathing mindfully, you're less likely to be swept away by your own internal monologue or the drive to respond quickly. You remain an anchor of calm attentiveness.
It also helps us avoid interrupting, which is a huge barrier to good listening.
Undeniably, interrupting is often a sign that we've stopped truly listening and have switched into response mode. Embracing silence naturally helps us curb those interruptive tendencies. We learn to resist the urge to complete their sentences or jump in with our own anecdotes.
I'm starting to see silence not as an absence of sound, but as a presence of mindful attention. It's an active choice to create space for understanding.
That's a fantastic way to describe it, Lisa. It's an active choice. It's a skill that requires practice, and it might feel uncomfortable at first. You might even have moments where you think you've broken the silence rule. But consistency is key. The more you practice allowing these natural pauses, the more comfortable and effective you'll become.
And the more you'll be able to truly connect with what others are saying, rather than just reacting to it.
Exactly. This practice transforms your conversations, making them more meaningful, more productive, and more empathetic. It allows you to build stronger relationships, because people feel truly heard and understood. They feel that their thoughts and feelings have been given the weight and consideration they deserve.
So, in essence, by embracing silence, we're not being passive, we're being more deeply engaged. We're creating room for both clarity and connection.
Indeed, we're allowing the listening to truly happen. Remember, silence isn't awkward, it's an opportunity. An opportunity to hear more deeply, to understand more fully, and to connect more meaningfully. It's a fundamental tool for anyone striving to achieve the listening edge.
So, listeners, try it this week. When someone finishes speaking, resist the urge to fill the void immediately. Take that breath, count to 3, and notice what happens. You might be surprised by the richness and depth that emerges from these quiet spaces.
Next episode, we'll be exploring how to overcome common listening barriers, both internal and external. Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Today, we're tackling serious listening barriers.
That's right, Alex. We've covered why listening is hard. But today is all about the how to. How do we actually push past those barriers when they happen? It's like knowing a road is bumpy, but having no idea how to steer around the potholes.
Exactly. So, let's recap those barriers. We have internal barriers. These are things happening within us, like our own thoughts, worries, beliefs, and emotions. Then we have external barriers, which are anything in our physical surroundings that makes listening difficult, like noise or visual distractions.
And remember how we said the internal ones are often the trickiest? That's because they're invisible to others and sometimes even to ourselves. We might think we're listening, but our mind is actually miles away, replaying a conversation, planning dinner, or worrying about a deadline.
Precisely. Let's start with those internal barriers. One of the biggest culprits is preoccupation. This is when your mind is so busy with your own thoughts that you can't fully attend to the speaker. You might be thinking about what you want to say next, or something completely unrelated. How we combat that?
This is where the techniques we've been building really come into play. For preoccupation, a powerful tool is conscious mindfulness. It's about gently bringing your focus back to the present moment, back to the speaker. When you notice your mind wandering, don't judge yourself. Just acknowledge it, and then deliberately redirect your attention. Imagine your thoughts are like clouds passing by, and you're choosing to focus on the person speaking, not the clouds.
That's a great analogy, Lisa. Mindfulness is about acknowledging the thought and then letting it go, like releasing a balloon. Another internal barrier is preconceived notions or biases. This is when our existing beliefs and assumptions color what we hear or even prevent us from hearing something new. We often hear what we expect to hear rather than what is actually being said.
This is a tough one because it's so ingrained. The key here is suspending judgment. When you catch yourself forming an opinion before the speaker has finished, pause. Remind yourself that your goal is to understand their perspective, not necessarily to agree with it. Actively try to listen for the nuances, for the parts that might challenge your existing beliefs. It's like trying on someone else's glasses to see the world through their eyes.
And how do we do that in practice? One way is to actively seek out different perspectives. When you're in a conversation, consciously look for what you might be missing because of your own viewpoint. This relates back to asking the right questions. Instead of questions that confirm your beliefs, ask open-ended questions that invite the speaker to elaborate and reveal more.
Absolutely. Another significant internal barrier is emotional interference. If we're feeling angry, anxious, or overly excited, it can be very hard to listen objectively. Think about a time you were really upset. Were you able to take in everything someone was telling you? Probably not.
Definitely not. So, what can we do when our emotions are running high? Emotional regulation is key. This means recognizing your emotional state and taking a moment to manage it before or during the conversation. Sometimes, This requires a literal pause. Saying something like, I need a moment to process this. Can we revisit this in a few minutes? Is a sign of strength, not weakness.
And when you can't take an immediate break, reframing your emotional response can help. Instead of letting the emotion hijack the conversation, acknowledge it internally and then try to understand how it might be impacting your listening. For example, if you're feeling defensive, consciously remind yourself to listen for the speaker's intent, not just the words that trigger your defensiveness. Remember empathic listening, and it's vital for overcoming emotional interference.
It certainly is. Now, let's shift to the external barriers. These are often more obvious, but they still require conscious effort to overcome. The most common is noise. Whether it's traffic outside, a noisy office, or a loud restaurant, noise competes for our attention.
If possible, minimizing noise is the first step. Can you move to a quieter location? Can you ask to turn down the volume? If you can't eliminate the noise, then the strategy becomes intensifying your focus. You have to work harder to filter out the background distractions and tune into the speaker's voice. This might involve leaning in slightly, making strong eye contact, and using all your active listening skills to create a more intimate communication bubble.
Think of it like trying to hear a specific instrument in a full orchestra. You have to really concentrate on that one sound. Visual distractions are another external barrier. People walking by, a busy screen, or even clutter can pull your attention away.
Similar to noise, where possible, try to reduce visual distractions. Face away from busy areas if you can. But if you can't, then again, it's about reinforcing your focus. Lock eyes with the speaker. Maybe take notes to keep your attention anchored. Your nonverbal cues can also signal to the speaker that you're engaged, which can help them maintain your focus too. Being animated and attentive yourself can create a more focused environment.
And then there's the ever-present technological distraction. Phones buzzing, notifications pinging. These are constant temptations and interruptions.
This is a big one in our modern world. The best strategy here is setting clear expectations and boundaries. Before a conversation, especially an important one, silence your phone, put it away, and let the other person know you're giving them your full attention. If you're in a meeting, suggest that phones be put away for a specific period. It's about prioritizing the human connection over the digital ping.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about a barrier that's a bit of a hybrid, impacting both internally and externally. The urge to interrupt. This often stems from internal impatience or a desire to show you understand, but it's a major external barrier for the speaker.
Oh, the interrupters. This requires a conscious effort to practice patience and restraint. Embracing the pause is critical here. When you feel that urge to jump in, bite your tongue, take a breath, and let the speaker finish their thought. They might be about to say something that clarifies everything, or something you hadn't even considered.
And when you do feel the urge to interrupt, it's a signal. It might mean you're getting excited about an idea, or you think you know where they're going. Instead of interrupting, jot down your thought on a pad and address it when they've finished. This respects the speaker and ensures your valuable contribution isn't lost or disruptive.
This is really practical advice. So, we've talked about preoccupation, biases, emotional interference, noise, visual distractions, technology, and the urge to interrupt. That's a lot of ground to cover. To recap, for internal barriers like preoccupation and biases, we focus on mindfulness and suspending judgment. For emotional interference, it's about regulation and reframing. For external barriers like noise and visual distractions, we aim to minimize them or intensify our focus. And for technological distractions and the urge to interrupt, it's about setting boundaries and practicing restraint.
You've summarized it beautifully, Lisa. It's important to remember that these barriers are normal. The goal isn't to eliminate them entirely, but to become aware of them and to develop the skills to manage them effectively. Think of these strategies not as isolated tricks, but as extensions of the core listening skills we've discussed throughout this series. Active listening, paraphrasing, empathy, asking good questions, they all become more potent when you're actively clearing the path of these barriers.
It really is about building a robust listening toolkit and knowing when to use each tool. It's about making a conscious choice to be present and engaged.
And by consistently practicing these strategies, you strengthen your ability to overcome listening barriers. You become a more dependable, understanding, and effective communicator. This cultivates trust and deeper connections, which are the hallmarks of a great listener.
So, whether you're in a personal conversation, a professional meeting, or just trying to understand a podcast, remember to check for those internal and external barriers and actively deploy these strategies.
That's it for episode 9. We've armed you with practical ways to blast through listening barriers. Next time, we'll explore how these crucial listening skills form the very foundation of strong relationships. Next episode, listening in relationships, the foundation of connection. Welcome back. Last time, we dove deep into overcoming those pesky internal and external barriers that could sabotage our listening. Today, we're focusing on arguably the most crucial area, listening in our relationships.
Absolutely, Alex. Because if we can't listen effectively to the people closest to us, how can we expect to build and maintain truly meaningful connections? This episode feels like a cornerstone for everything else we've discussed.
It really is. Think about it. Every argument, every misunderstanding, every moment of distance in a relationship often boils down to a failure to truly hear each other. We talked about active listening in episode 3, right? That's the bedrock here. It's not just passively absorbing sounds. It's an engaged process.
Right.
Active listening means being fully present, showing you're paying attention through nods, eye contact, and verbal cues, and making a conscious effort to understand the speaker's message. So, for relationships, this translates to putting down the phone, turning off the TV, and facing your partner or friend when they're talking to you.
Exactly. And it's about seeking to understand their perspective, not just waiting for your turn to speak. This brings us to empathic listening, which we explored in episode 5. Empathy is about stepping into someone else's shoes, trying to feel what they're feeling. In relationships, this is the gateway to deep connection and intimacy.
When your partner is upset, for example, instead of immediately trying to fix the problem or offer solutions, empathic listening means first acknowledging their feelings. You might say, "It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated right now," or "I can see how upsetting that must be for you." This validates their emotions and shows you care about their experience, not just the solution to the problem.
That validation is so powerful. It disarms defensiveness and opens the door for genuine communication. So, the first principle for listening in relationships is to be fully present and to practice empathy. Can you recall what we said about paraphrasing and summarizing in episode 4? Lisa?
Oh, for sure. Paraphrasing is essentially restating what the other person said in your own words to ensure you understood correctly. Like saying, "So, if I'm hearing you right, you're saying that when I didn't call, it made you feel forgotten?" And summarizing is pulling together the main points of a longer conversation.
Perfect. And this skill is invaluable in relationships. When tensions are high, or when a conversation has many layers, paraphrasing and summarizing act as verbal checkpoints. They show your partner that you are actively processing their words and that their message is important enough for you to double-check your understanding. This prevents the dreaded, "that's not what I meant" reaction.
It's like saying, "Let me make sure I've got this before I respond." It avoids misunderstandings and shows respect for their communication. It's not about agreeing with them, but about understanding them.
Precisely. And this leads us to asking the right questions, a topic we covered in episode 7. In relationships, the questions we ask often reveal our level of engagement and curiosity. Instead of accusatory questions like, "Why did you do that?" we want to lean towards open-ended, curiosity-driven questions like, "Can you tell me more about what was going on for you then?" Or "What were you hoping would happen?"
Those kinds of questions invite dialogue and exploration, rather than shutting down the conversation. They encourage vulnerability and sharing, which are essential for building trust in any relationship, whether it's with a romantic partner, a family member, or a close friend.
And what about silence? Remember episode 8? We discussed the strength of silence. In relationships, we often feel compelled to fill every quiet moment. But sometimes a pregnant pause after a difficult statement from a loved one allows them space to process, to continue if they wish, or simply to feel heard without immediate interruption.
That can be so challenging, though. Our instinct is often to jump in and fix things or smooth over discomfort. But allowing that space can be more powerful than words. It shows we trust them to articulate their thoughts and feelings.
It truly does. Now, let's bring in the concept of nonverbal cues from episode 6. In relationships, what someone doesn't say can be just as important as what they do. Observing body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, these provide crucial context. Are their arms crossed defensively when they say they're okay? Is their gaze averted when they talk about a sensitive topic?
And as the listener, we need to be aware of our own nonverbal cues. Are we leaning in, showing our openness, or are we slumped, arms crossed, signaling disinterest? In intimate relationships, where authenticity is key, mirroring or incongruent nonverbal signals can create confusion and erode trust.
Absolutely. A consistent and attentive nonverbal presence signals respect and care. Now, let's consider conflict resolution. When disagreements arise, our natural tendency can be to defend our position. But listening to understand, not just to respond, as we'll discuss in episode 12, is vital. This means actively trying to grasp the other person's underlying needs and fears, even if their delivery is clumsy or hurtful.
This is where the ability to listen to diffuse conflict, which we'll explore in episode 14, becomes so important. Instead of escalating, we can use our listening skills to de-escalate. For instance, acknowledging the validity of their feelings, even if you disagree with their premise, can be a game changer. I hear that you feel I haven't been supportive, and I want to understand why you feel that way.
That's a powerful example. And we also need to acknowledge overcoming the know-it-all listener tendency, which we'll get to in episode 18. In relationships, it's easy to fall into patterns where we think we already know what our partner is going to say or what they should be saying. This dismisses their unique experience. We must constantly remind ourselves that everyone is an individual with their own valid perspective.
It's about approaching each conversation as if it's the first time you're hearing their unique story or perspective. And this connects directly to the idea of building rapport through reflective listening, which we'll cover in episode 21. Reflective listening involves not just paraphrasing, but also reflecting the underlying feelings and meanings. So, it's like saying, it sounds like this situation made you feel really unsupported and alone.
That's a fantastic summary of reflective listening. It goes beyond the words to the emotions. And imagine the cumulative effect of consistent, skilled listening in relationships. Over time, it transforms dynamics. It builds that deep trust and emotional safety that makes partners feel like a trusted confidant, a topic we'll dedicate time to in episode 22. When people know they will be genuinely heard and understood, they open up, they share their vulnerabilities, and that is the very essence of intimacy.
It creates a cycle of positive interaction. The more I feel heard by you, the more I'm willing to share. The more I share, the more you understand me, and the more equipped you are to respond with empathy and support. This fosters mutual understanding, strengthens bonds, and makes navigating life's inevitable challenges much easier.
And this isn't just for romantic relationships. Think about parent-child dynamics. A parent who truly listens, who doesn't just issue commands but hears their child's frustrations, fears, and excitement, is building a relationship of respect and open communication. Or friendships. A friend who offers a listening ear without judgment becomes an invaluable source of support.
Even in professional relationships, like with colleagues or team members, applying these listening skills can lead to better collaboration, increased trust, and a more positive work environment. When a leader truly listens to their team's concerns, They can identify potential issues before they become major problems and inspire greater loyalty and performance.
We've talked about listening to understand, not just to respond. In relationships, this means setting aside our own agenda and truly prioritizing the other person's experience in that moment. It's about making the other person feel seen, valued, and understood. This is how we create the foundation for connection.
So, to recap the key takeaways for listening in relationships, be fully present, practice empathy, use paraphrasing and summarizing to ensure understanding, ask open ended, curious questions, embrace silence when appropriate, pay attention to nonverbal cues, focus on understanding underlying needs during conflict, avoid the know it all mindset, and reflect feelings to build deeper rapport. These are the tools that forge strong, resilient connections.
Absolutely. When we master listening in our relationships, we unlock a level of connection that enriches every aspect of our lives. It's the foundation upon which lasting love, deep friendship, and strong family bonds are built.
It's the quiet superpower that makes all the other relationships work.
Indeed, it does. Next episode, we'll shift our focus to how these powerful listening skills can elevate leadership and inspire performance in the workplace. Welcome back. Last time we covered listening in relationships. Now let's tackle listening in leadership.
Often, people think of leadership as being the loudest voice, but effective leaders are often the best listeners. They create an environment where people feel heard and valued.
Exactly. Leaders guide people, and to do that effectively, you need to understand them, their perspectives, their challenges, their ideas. You get that understanding through listening. It's about grasping the meaning behind the words.
So, for a leader, what does listening really look like in practice?
It's about creating an environment where people feel safe to speak up. It's demonstrating genuine curiosity. When a leader actively listens, they send a powerful message. Your contributions matter. This builds immense trust. Imagine a team member sharing a concern. If the leader dismisses it without truly hearing them out, that team member is less likely to share future insights. That's a missed opportunity.
It's like building a bridge. Listening is the material. When you don't listen, the bridge never gets built.
That's a great analogy. And this trust has tangible impacts on performance. When employees trust their leaders, they are more engaged, more willing to go the extra mile, and more committed to the organization's goals. They feel psychological safety, allowing them to perform at their best.
So, listening isn't just a soft skill, it's a strategic imperative. How can leaders cultivate this skill?
One powerful way is through open-ended questions. Instead of yes or no questions, leaders should ask questions that encourage elaboration. Questions like, can you tell me more about that? Or what are your thoughts on how we can approach this? Prompt detailed responses and show genuine interest.
And it's also about what you do with the information you hear, right?
Absolutely. Gathering feedback is crucial, but what leaders do with that feedback defines their effectiveness. When a leader acknowledges the feedback, perhaps by paraphrasing it back, so, you're concerned about X because of Y, it confirms they've heard and understood. Then, if action can be taken, transparency about those actions, or at least an explanation if action isn't possible, closes the loop. Even if every suggestion can't be implemented, acknowledging and considering it shows respect and builds trust.
That sounds like the difference between just hearing someone and truly validating their experience.
It is, and it's crucial for performance development. Leaders who listen intently to their team members' career aspirations, strengths, and areas for growth can provide more targeted and effective coaching. They can identify opportunities for training or new responsibilities. This listening-driven development nurtures talent and fosters loyalty.
So, Instead of the leader dictating a plan, they're co-creating it through dialogue and listening. That must lead to greater buy-in from the employee.
Precisely. It shifts the dynamic from top-down directive to a collaborative partnership. And this principle of listening to understand, not just to respond, is paramount. When a leader is in a discussion, are they already formulating their counterargument, or are they genuinely trying to grasp the other person's viewpoint?
That's tough. It's easy to get caught up in our own thoughts.
It really is. And that's where active listening techniques come into play. Beyond open-ended questions, it involves paying attention to nonverbal cues, body language, tone of voice. It also means minimizing distractions. When a leader is meeting with someone, putting away the phone and making eye contact sends a clear signal of attentiveness. It says, "You have my full attention."
And what about silence? How does embracing silence benefit leaders?
Silence is golden for leaders. It allows space for the other person to think, to elaborate, and to feel comfortable sharing more. Sometimes, people need a moment of quiet reflection. A leader who rushes to fill every silence can inadvertently cut off valuable insights. It gives the speaker time to breathe and feel confident in their contributions. It shows patience.
So, a leader comfortable with silence gives their team permission to be thoughtful and unhurried in their responses.
Exactly. It creates a more reflective and productive communication environment. Now, let's consider the impact of listening on decision-making. When a leader actively seeks out diverse perspectives from their team, listens to the pros and cons, and truly considers all angles, their decisions are almost always more robust and well-informed. They can anticipate potential pitfalls.
So, listening is like gathering intelligence before deploying resources. It's about making smarter choices.
Yes, and it also means gathering crucial feedback on the overall health of the team and organization. Are people feeling burnout? Are there bottlenecks? Are there conflicts brewing? A leader attuned to subtle cues can address issues proactively before they become major crises.
It sounds like a leader's listening ability is directly correlated with their ability to steer the ship effectively.
That's an apt way to put it. And this concept extends to difficult conversations. Leaders often have to deliver tough feedback or navigate challenging personnel issues. The ability to listen empathetically, to understand the other person's emotional state and perspective even during a difficult exchange, is critical for maintaining professionalism and fostering a constructive outcome. It doesn't mean agreeing, but it means understanding. This approach can de-escalate tension.
So, even when the conversation is hard, listening can be the key to finding common ground or a path forward.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the idea of creating a culture of listening. When leaders consistently model good listening behaviors, it sets the tone for the entire organization. Team members are more likely to listen to each other, collaborate effectively, and feel valued. It's a ripple effect. A leader who prioritizes listening cultivates a more cohesive, productive, and positive work environment.
It really underscores that leadership isn't just about position, it's about influence, and listening is one of the most powerful forms of influence a leader possesses. It inspires trust, motivates individuals, improves decision-making, and ultimately drives better performance.
Well summarized, Lisa, for any leader aspiring to inspire trust and achieve peak performance, the art of listening is essential. It's the invisible superpower that fuels truly effective leadership.
Fantastic. For our listeners, we've seen how listening in leadership builds trust through genuine curiosity and valuing contributions. Leaders can do this by asking open-ended questions, acting on feedback, and creating a safe space for dialogue. Embracing silence, paying attention to nonverbals, and listening empathetically are also key. Ultimately, a leader who listens well fosters a positive culture, makes better decisions, and drives higher performance.
And that ability to inspire trust and performance through listening is what we've explored today. Next episode, listening to understand, not just to respond. to the listening edge. Last time, we explored how to master asking the right questions to unlock deeper understanding. Now, we're discussing a distinction that can fundamentally change how we connect with others. Listening to understand versus listening just to respond.
That's such a crucial point. It's a subtle shift, isn't it? We've all been on the receiving end of someone who seems to be nodding along, but you can tell they're just waiting for a break in your sentence to launch into their own story or opinion.
Exactly. They aren't truly absorbing what you're saying. They are building their case, so to speak. This episode is all about cultivating a mindset purely focused on comprehension, wanting to know what the other person actually means, feels, and believes before even considering what you'll say next.
So it's about genuine curiosity, then? More like a detective trying to gather all the evidence, rather than a debater preparing their rebuttal?
That's a perfect analogy. A detective's primary goal is to understand the situation completely. They ask open-ended questions, they listen intently to every detail, and they reflect on what they've heard. They aren't thinking about their closing arguments while the witness is still speaking. They're focused on understanding.
And this can be challenging because our brains are wired for quick reactions and problem solving. When someone is talking, especially if it's about a topic we know well, or if it touches a nerve, our instinct is to jump in with our expertise or our own experience.
Absolutely. It's a natural human tendency. Our minds are fast. We process information incredibly quickly. So, while the other person is speaking, our brain might have already processed their statement, formulated a response, thought about how it relates to our life, and maybe even planned our grocery list for next week.
So, how do we intentionally shift from that reactive mode to a truly understanding mode? What's the first step?
The first step is awareness. Simply recognizing this internal battle is huge. When you're in a conversation, ask yourself, am I truly trying to grasp their perspective, or am I just preparing my answer? This self-monitoring is key.
Okay, so self-awareness is the foundation. What comes next?
Next, we need to consciously suspend our own agenda. This means quieting the internal monologue that's ready to interject. Imagine you're watching a movie. You don't usually pause the film to offer your 2 cents to the characters, right? You let the story unfold. We need to apply that same patience to conversations.
That makes sense. It's about giving the speaker the space they need to fully express themselves, without interruption, and without us imposing our own thoughts prematurely. This also ties back to our earlier episodes on silence, doesn't it? Letting the other person fill the space.
Precisely. The pauses aren't voids to be filled by you. They're opportunities for the speaker to gather their thoughts or for you to digest what's been said. When you're focused on understanding, you actually welcome those pauses. You use them to process, not to plan your next move.
So, when we're letting the speaker talk and we're giving them space, how do we ensure we're not just passively hearing words, but actively processing meaning?
Great question. This is where active listening techniques become even more vital. Instead of just waiting for your turn, you're actively engaged in constructing the meaning of their words. This involves paying close attention to their language, their tone, and importantly, their underlying emotions.
And to do that, we need to be less focused on our own internal reactions, right? If I'm thinking, oh, that's so wrong, or I know exactly what they should do, I'm already stepping out of the understanding zone.
You've hit the nail on the head. When you're listening to understand, you temporarily put your own judgments, opinions, and solutions on hold. Your primary goal is to comprehend their world, their feelings, and their reasoning. Think of it like being an anthropologist. You're observing and trying to understand a different culture without immediately trying to change it or apply your own cultural norms.
That's a brilliant way to put it. It's about seeking to understand someone else's why. Why do they feel this way? Why did they do that? Why is this important to them? That's a completely different intention than if I'm just waiting to offer advice, which often comes from our own perspective.
Exactly. And when you approach conversations with this intention, 3 things tend to happen. First, the speaker feels truly heard and respected. This builds deeper trust and rapport. People open up more when they feel they aren't being judged or rushed.
That makes so much sense. When I feel someone is genuinely trying to get where I'm coming from, I feel safer to be more vulnerable, to share more, and to be more honest.
The second thing is that you gain a much richer and more accurate understanding of the situation. You move beyond surface level comments to grasp the nuances, the unspoken messages, and the true core of what's being communicated. This leads to better decision making and more effective problem solving because you're working with complete information.
So, if I'm trying to solve a problem with a colleague and I just listen to formulate my solution, I might miss a critical piece of information they were hinting at. But if I truly listen to understand their challenge, I might uncover a root cause I hadn't even considered.
Precisely. And the third major benefit is personal growth. By truly immersing yourself in another's perspective, you broaden your own horizons. You learn new ways of thinking, you challenge your own assumptions, and you become a more adaptable and insightful individual.
It's like expanding your own map of the world through someone else's eyes. Alex, you mentioned earlier that our brains are fast and we often jump ahead. What are some practical techniques we can use in the moment to resist that urge to prepare our response and instead focus on understanding?
One powerful technique is to repeat key phrases mentally or even subtly out loud. If someone says, "I'm completely overwhelmed by the deadline," you might mentally echo, "overwhelmed by the deadline." This keeps your focus on their words and their feeling rather than your own thoughts about deadlines.
So it's like a mental anchor, keeping you tethered to what they're saying.
Exactly. Another technique is to ask clarifying questions, but with the sole intention of understanding. Not questions that lead them to your point, but questions that genuinely seek to unpack their statement. For example, if they say, "This project is a disaster," instead of jumping to fixes, you might ask, "Can you tell me more about what makes you say it feels like a disaster?"
That's a great example. It's open-ended and invites them to elaborate, rather than a leading question like, is it the budget that's the disaster? Which forces them into a specific box.
Right? You're seeking their definition of disaster in this context. And sometimes the best thing you can do is simply nod and provide nonverbal cues that convey your processing. A focused gaze, leaning in slightly. These signals communicate that you are present and engaged in understanding them.
It's about showing them, through your body language and focused attention, that their words are landing and being absorbed, not just bounced off a preoccupied mind.
And this applies across all areas of our lives. In our personal relationships, listening to understand avoids misunderstandings and deepens intimacy. It's the difference between a relationship where partners feel truly seen and one where they feel like two ships passing in the night.
We've talked about relationships and leadership. When it comes to leadership, this approach fosters loyalty and better performance. Employees feel valued when their leader truly takes the time to understand their concerns and ideas, rather than just delegating or dictating.
And in professional settings, whether you're in sales, customer service, or team collaboration, genuinely understanding your audience or client's needs leads to far better outcomes. It's about providing solutions that actually solve the problem because you've taken the time to fully grasp the problem from their perspective.
So, to recap, the fundamental shift is moving from an intention of formulating a response to an intention of achieving complete comprehension. This involves cultivating self-awareness, suspending your own agenda, embracing pauses, actively processing meaning, and putting your judgments on hold.
And when we do this, we build trust, gain deeper insights, and facilitate our own personal growth, while also improving our relationships and professional effectiveness. It's a powerful, yet deceptively simple practice.
It really is. It requires conscious effort, but the rewards are immense. It's about transforming conversations from mere exchanges of words into genuine connections and shared understanding.
So, for the coming week, I challenge all our listeners to practice this. In your next few significant conversations, make a conscious effort to listen to understand, not just to respond. Notice the difference it makes.
It's a journey, and every step towards deeper understanding brings us closer to mastering the listening edge.
Next episode, we'll be diving into advanced empathy, exploring how to navigate even the most difficult conversations with compassion and understanding. Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Today we're diving deeper into advanced empathy for navigating difficult conversations.
Those conversations where emotions run high can be so challenging. How do we move beyond basic empathy when the stakes feel high?
Advanced empathy connects with intense feelings, responding to de-escalate, not inflame. It's about staying connected to their experience.
So, it's more than just saying, I understand you're upset. It's about grasping why they feel that way.
Precisely. First, stay present. Focus intently on the speaker's words, tone, and body language to understand what's truly being communicated.
Staying present sounds simple, but how do we manage our own emotional reactions when we feel attacked or misunderstood?
Self-awareness is key. Notice your own physical reactions without judgment. This creates space between what happens and how you respond. It's like having a remote for your emotions.
So, recognize your own feelings first, then extend empathy outwards. That's a form of self-empathy.
Exactly. Then, validate their experience. Validation acknowledges their feelings are real and understandable from their viewpoint, not necessarily agreement. You might say, I can see why that would make you feel hurt.
That's a powerful distinction, validation versus agreement. People often avoid validation for fear of admitting fault.
That fear shuts down communication. When someone feels genuinely heard and validated, they're more open to your perspective. So far, stay present. Manage your own reactions through self-awareness and validate their experience.
That's a solid framework. But what about when emotions are very intense? How do we cut through that noise?
Our active listening skills are even more critical. Use paraphrasing and summarizing intentionally. For example, so, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're feeling overlooked because your contributions weren't acknowledged, leading to frustration. Is that right? This shows you're working to grasp their reality.
And asking, is that right? Invites them to guide your understanding.
Precisely. You're empowering them. Another technique is reflecting underlying feelings. If someone says, I had to stay late again, the feeling might be exhaustion or resentment. You could reflect, it sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed and perhaps resentful about working extra hours regularly.
So you're hypothesizing about emotions behind the words, based on tone and pauses.
It requires careful observation. And even if you guess the emotion wrong, their correction provides valuable information. You're still in a dialogue of understanding.
This helps create a safe space for them to express even difficult emotions without fear of judgment.
Exactly. And this leads to managing your desire to fix things immediately. Before you can get to a solution, the emotional space needs to be cleared. Rushing to fix can feel dismissive. Let them feel heard first.
So, resist the urge to jump in with advice or solutions too quickly. Let emotions be expressed and understood.
Yes. And when you do offer solutions, frame them inclusively. You could say, given what you've shared about feeling overwhelmed, I was wondering if we could explore some options for redistributing workload. What do you think?
It feels like a delicate dance, balancing their reality with your perspective.
It is, but it builds stronger connections. Remember the power of silence? Embrace pauses. Let the other person fill the silence if they need to express more.
Interrupting those silences to offer quick fixes would derail the empathetic process.
Absolutely. To recap, advanced empathy in difficult conversations. Stay present. Manage your own reactions. Validate their experience. Use active listening for clarity. Reflect underlying feelings. Resist immediate fixes and frame solutions inclusively. And finally, embrace the power of silence.
Practicing these skills will lead to more constructive outcomes, even when topics are tough. It fosters trust by showing you engage with their emotional reality.
It transforms difficult conversations into opportunities for deeper understanding and connection. That's the edge great listeners possess.
This has been incredibly insightful, Alex. It's a skill that requires practice, but the payoff in building stronger relationships is immense.
It truly is. Next episode, the art of listening to diffuse conflict. Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Today, we're discussing how to diffuse conflict using sophisticated listening skills.
That's such a critical skill, Alex. So often, conflict arises from a failure to truly hear each other.
Exactly, Lisa. In conflict, our defenses are up, and we often focus on winning the argument. What usually happens then?
Things just escalate, right? Tension builds, misunderstandings pile up, and we move further from resolution. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Precisely. And this is where sophisticated listening techniques become incredibly powerful. They actively disarm tension and create space for resolution.
So, how do active listening, empathy, and validation play out in conflict?
Let's break it down. The first, most crucial step is to ensure the other person feels heard. This sounds simple, but it's incredibly effective. Remember our discussions on paraphrasing and summarizing? This is where it shines.
Yes.
So, instead of jumping in with your own counterarguments, you actively listen and reflect it back. You might say, so, if I'm understanding correctly, you're feeling frustrated because you believe your concerns about the project timeline weren't taken seriously. Is that right?
That's a perfect example. By paraphrasing, you show you were paying attention. This alone can lower defenses. Second, you ensure you truly understand their point of view. We often hear what we expect, not what is actually said. Paraphrasing provides a check.
And that leads directly into validation, which we touched on last time. Even if you don't agree with their perspective, acknowledging their feelings is important.
Absolutely. Validation is an agreement. It's acknowledging the legitimacy of someone's emotional experience. In conflict, someone might be angry or hurt. You can validate by saying, I can see why you'd feel that way. Or, it makes sense that this situation would make you upset.
It's like saying, I recognize your pain or point of view, even if I don't share it.
Exactly. Think of it as a psychological pause button. When emotions are raging, validation cools things down. It tells the other person, you're not crazy for feeling this way, and I'm not dismissing your experience. This shifts the dynamic from attack and defend to problem solving.
And how does asking questions help de-escalate conflict?
Great question. In conflict, people feel they have to defend their position. Asking clarifying questions, framed with genuine curiosity, can redirect their energy. Instead of, why are you so angry? Try, can you help me understand what specifically led to you feeling this way? Or what is it about this particular issue that's most concerning to you?
So, it's about framing questions to invite explanation rather than demand justification.
Precisely. This takes the focus off the accusation and puts it on to understanding the underlying issues. It also encourages the other person to articulate their thoughts more clearly, helping them process their feelings and allowing you to gather more information.
It's almost like you're creating a collaborative space for investigation, not a battleground.
That's a fantastic way to put it. And this leads us to the power of silence, of embracing the pause. In conflict, the urge is to fill every silence. But in de-escalation, silence can be golden.
Are you saying we should just be quiet in the middle of an argument?
In strategic moments, yes. After you've paraphrased or validated, a brief silence can allow the other person to absorb what you've said. It gives them space to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. It signals that you're not rushing them, that you're willing to wait for a more considered response. This can be incredibly disarming.
So, we've talked about paraphrasing to ensure understanding, validating feelings to acknowledge their experience, asking clarifying questions to invite explanation, and embracing silence to create thoughtful space. These are all tools we've learned, now applied directly to managing tense situations.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to remember this requires genuine intent. You can't just superficially apply these techniques. The underlying mindset has to be a desire for resolution and understanding, not just to win. If the other person senses you're just going through the motions, it won't work.
That makes sense. It's about cultivating a posture of openness, even when you feel under attack.
Right. And consider how these elements work together. You might start by listening intently to their full statement. Then, you paraphrase to confirm you've understood their core points and feelings. For instance, so it sounds like you're feeling unsupported because you believe I committed to helping with the report and then didn't, which made you feel overwhelmed. Is that a fair summary?
And then you validate. I can genuinely see why that would create frustration and make you feel let down. It's understandable to feel that way when you're expecting support and it doesn't materialize.
Precisely. And after that, you might ask a clarifying question when ready to move forward. To help me understand better, what kind of support were you hoping for in that moment? This opens the door for them to elaborate, and for you to then explain your own perspective. Perhaps something like, from my end, I was struggling with X, and I realized too late that I hadn't communicated that, which led to a misunderstanding.
This sounds like a process of building bridges rather than walls. Each step is designed to lower the temperature and increase mutual comprehension.
It is, and it's a skill that improves with practice. The more you practice listening to de-escalate, the more natural it becomes, and the more effective you'll be at navigating even the most challenging conversations.
It's a powerful reframe. Instead of seeing conflict as something to be avoided or won, we can see it as an opportunity to deepen connection and understanding through empathetic, active listening.
Exactly. When we shift from I need to win to I need to understand, the landscape of conflict completely changes. The tools we've discussed, paraphrasing, empathy, validation, questioning, and strategic silence, are your toolkit for this transformation. They help you move from a reactive, emotion-driven state to a more proactive, problem-solving state. And importantly, they help the other person do the same.
So, to recap, diffusing conflict using listening skills involves ensuring the other person feels heard through accurate paraphrasing, validating their emotions to acknowledge their experience, asking gentle, clarifying questions to invite explanation, and using strategic silence to create space for thoughtful responses. These techniques, with genuine intent, can transform adversarial situations into collaborative problem solving.
Well said, Lisa. Mastering these advanced listening skills, especially in conflict resolution, truly gives you an edge. It's about understanding that the most powerful way to get your point across is sometimes to first deeply understand the other person's. Next episode, we'll explore how cultural differences impact listening and how to bridge those divides. Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Last time, we explored the crucial skill of listening to diffuse conflict, understanding how empathy and careful questioning can de-escalate tense situations. Now, we're taking our listening skills to a global level as we discuss episode 15, Listening Culturally, Bridging Different Worlds.
That's right, Alex. We've spent a lot of time talking about listening within our own cultural bubbles. But the world is incredibly diverse, and misinterpretations can happen so easily when we interact with people from different backgrounds.
Absolutely, Lisa. Think about it. We've discussed how important nonverbal cues are in listening, right? Well, Those cues like eye contact, gestures, and even personal space can mean vastly different things in different cultures. What might be a sign of respect in one culture could be seen as a challenge in another.
It's like in some cultures, direct eye contact is a sign of honesty and engagement. But in others, prolonged direct eye contact might be considered disrespectful or aggressive, especially when speaking to elders or authority figures. So, as a listener, if you're expecting direct eye contact and don't get it, you might wrongly assume the speaker isn't paying attention or isn't being truthful.
Exactly. And it's not just nonverbal communication. The very pace and style of speech can differ. Some cultures appreciate a more direct, to the point communication style, while others prefer a more indirect approach, where context and relationship building are emphasized before getting to the main point.
So, if you're accustomed to a direct style, listening to someone who speaks indirectly might feel like they're beating around the bush or avoiding the issue. You might get impatient, wanting them to just get to the point.
Precisely. And the reverse is also true. If you're used to indirect communication and you're speaking with someone direct, their bluntness might feel rude or abrupt to you, even if that's just their normal way of communicating. This is where we need to shift our perspective and not judge their style through our own cultural lens.
It sounds like the first key to cultural listening is developing a sense of awareness and humility, recognizing that our way isn't the only way or necessarily the right way to communicate or interpret communication.
That's a fantastic starting point, Lisa. Awareness is crucial. We need to be aware that these differences exist and that they can significantly impact our listening experience. And humility allows us to approach these interactions with an open mind rather than with assumptions.
So, how do we practically apply this? If I'm in a conversation with someone from a different cultural background, what should I be paying attention to beyond just the words they're saying?
Great question. Beyond the nonverbal cues we've touched upon, pay attention to the importance of silence. In many Western cultures, silence in conversation can feel awkward, and we rush to fill it. But in many Asian, African, and indigenous cultures, silence is a valuable part of communication. It can signify respect, thoughtfulness, or that the speaker is processing information.
Oh, that's a big one. I can definitely see how an eagerness to fill silence could lead to interrupting or cutting someone off in a culture where silence is appreciated. It's not about rushing the conversation, it's about respecting their communication style.
Exactly. And consider the concept of saving face. In many collectivist cultures, maintaining harmony and avoiding public embarrassment for oneself or others is paramount. This can influence how feedback is given or received and how direct disagreements are expressed. A direct no or strong criticism might be avoided to preserve social harmony.
That makes sense. So, instead of a direct critique, you might hear more nuanced language, or even a seemingly simple agreement that, in context, carries a different meaning. This leads back to our earlier episodes on understanding context.
Yes, context becomes even more critical when listening culturally. You can't always take things at face value. You need to consider the speaker's cultural background, the relationship between the speakers, and the overall social setting. This is what we might call high context versus low context communication.
Could you explain that difference a bit more, Alex? For our listeners, what does high context and low context communication mean in practical terms?
Certainly, in low context cultures, like many in North America and Western Europe, the message itself is conveyed directly and explicitly through words. The meaning is in what is said. Think of a precise instruction manual. It tells you exactly what to do.
Okay, so very literal.
Very literal. Now, in high context cultures, which are more common in East Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East, much of the meaning is derived from the context surrounding the message, the nonverbal cues, the relationship, the shared understanding, the situation. The words are often just a part of the communication. It's like a subtle hint or an indirect suggestion, and you're expected to pick up on the unsaid.
So, in a high context culture, if someone says that might be difficult instead of no, you need to understand that difficult might actually mean impossible or I am not comfortable saying no directly.
Precisely. And as listeners, we need to be attuned to these nuances. This means we can't just passively listen to the words. We need to be active observers, noticing the environment, the speaker's demeanor, and the relationship dynamics. We need to ask ourselves, what is being communicated here beyond the literal words?
This sounds like it requires a significant level of deliberate focus. It's easy to glaze over when you're not used to a particular communication style.
It absolutely does. And it's a skill that strengthens with practice. So, what are some concrete strategies we can employ when listening across cultures? First, as we've said, cultivate awareness and humility. Acknowledge that cultural differences exist and will impact communication.
So, start by accepting that your interpretation might be influenced by your own background.
Exactly. Second, practice active observation. This means paying attention not just to words, but to tone of voice, body language, gestures, and the overall context. Look for patterns and inconsistencies.
This is where we really need to be present, isn't it? Not just hearing, but truly observing.
Yes. Third, seek clarification respectfully. If you're unsure about something, it's far better to ask for clarification than to make an assumption. Use phrases like, "Could you help me understand that a bit more?" Or, "I want to make sure I'm following correctly. Are you saying?"
And it's important that the tone of asking for clarification is genuinely curious, not accusatory, right? You don't want to make the other person feel like they've failed to communicate properly.
Absolutely. Curiosity and a desire to understand are key. Fourth, be patient and allow for silence. If the conversation includes pauses, don't feel compelled to fill them immediately. Give a speaker time to gather their thoughts.
Resisting that urge to fill the quiet is going to be a challenge for many of us.
It will be. And fifth, be adaptable and flexible. Be ready to adjust your listening style based on the cultural context. If you notice that directness is causing discomfort, you might soften your approach. If indirectness is the norm, be patient as you decipher the message.
So, it's about being a good listener, but with an added layer of cultural intelligence. You're not just listening to the message, but you're listening to how the message is being delivered through the lens of another culture.
Precisely. And this extends to understanding how humor, politeness, and even criticism are expressed. What one person finds funny, another might find offensive. What one culture deems polite, another might see as overly formal or insincere.
It seems like building rapport is especially important when listening cross-culturally. When people feel a connection and trust, they are more likely to be open and clear in their communication, and we are more likely to be open to understanding their unique communication style.
You've hit on a very important point, Lisa. Building rapport is foundational. When you show genuine interest, respect, and a willingness to understand, you create a safe space for cross-cultural communication to flourish. Remember, the goal of listening, regardless of culture, is connection and understanding. When we listen across cultures, we're really bridging gaps, fostering empathy, and building stronger, more inclusive relationships.
So, to recap for our listeners, to listen effectively across cultures, we need to be aware of cultural differences in communication, especially nonverbal cues, pace, and the use of silence. We need to understand the difference between high context and low context communication and not assume our own cultural norms are universal. Key strategies include maintaining humility, actively observing beyond just words, seeking clarification respectfully, being patient with silence, and adapting our listening style. It's about curiosity, empathy, and a genuine desire to bridge different worlds.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. By developing our cultural listening skills, we don't just become better listeners. We become better global citizens, capable of navigating our increasingly interconnected world with greater understanding and grace. Next episode, The Listener's Compass, Navigating Ethical Listening. Welcome Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Today we're navigating critical ethical listening.
Ethical listening. That sounds incredibly important, Alex. How does that apply specifically to listening?
It's about the responsibility that comes with hearing what others share. Ethical listening means honoring that trust with integrity and respect. It's about the moral compass guiding our response.
So, it's like being a guardian of what we hear. What's the first big ethical principle?
Confidentiality. This is paramount. If someone shares something with you in confidence, you must keep it that way. Think of it like a vault.
If people can't trust privacy, they'll stop sharing.
Exactly. Breaches of confidentiality can have serious consequences. The damage to trust can be immense. We need to be mindful of who else might be listening.
So, it's about creating psychological safety where vulnerability is protected.
Precisely. And that leads to honesty. Ethical listening involves being truthful in how we interpret and reflect what we've heard. It means not twisting someone's words.
Sometimes, in our desire to be helpful, we offer advice. Is that an ethical concern?
It can be. It's about respecting the speaker's autonomy. Are you listening to support them or to steer them? Ethical listening means recognizing the person speaking is the expert on their own experience. This is about empowering them.
So, the intention behind our listening matters. Are we listening to truly understand or with an ulterior motive?
That's hitting the nail on the head. When we listen to understand, we're honoring the speaker's inherent worth. This is the bedrock of building genuine trust.
I can imagine situations where we hear something that deeply upsets us, or if someone is in danger. How does confidentiality play into that?
That's a crucial ethical dilemma. Generally, confidentiality is paramount. However, there are critical exceptions. If someone confides in you about imminent harm to themselves or others, or about abuse, you have a moral and often legal obligation to report it. It's not about breaking trust lightly, but about acting responsibly when severe harm is at stake.
So, it's a balancing act. Protecting privacy versus ensuring safety.
Precisely. And those are incredibly difficult decisions. It's why self-awareness is so vital. We need to know our own biases and triggers.
Bias. That's a huge one. How do we ensure our biases don't lead us astray ethically?
By actively seeking to identify and challenge them. When you notice yourself making assumptions, pause. Ask yourself, is my reaction based on what this person is actually saying or on my preconceived notions?
So, self-reflection is a constant companion for an ethical listener.
Absolutely. It's about integrity in our silence, too. Sometimes, the most ethical action is to listen and say nothing. An ethical listener respects the pauses.
The power of silence. Indeed. So, to recap our ethical principles: confidentiality, honesty, respecting autonomy, recognizing our intentions, and being aware of our biases.
That's a solid foundation. Another aspect is also about how we use what we hear. Ethical listeners don't leverage confidential or sensitive information for personal gain. It's about using listening as a tool for connection and understanding, not for personal advantage.
That's a crucial distinction. It separates good listening from manipulative listening. It's about being a trusted confidant.
Exactly. And what about the impact of how we present ourselves? Even our tone of voice, our body language, can convey ethical or unethical listening. Ethical listening requires our entire being to be present and respectful.
So, it's a holistic approach. It requires us to be mindful of our words, our silences, our intentions, and our nonverbal cues.
It is, and frankly, it's demanding. Being an ethical listener requires constant vigilance. But the rewards, deeper relationships, greater trust, and a more profound understanding are immense.
It's like being a trusted steward of someone's story. This episode really highlights that ethical listening is not just a good practice, it's a moral imperative for anyone who wants to build strong, authentic connections.
Well said, Lisa. It's about being someone people can rely on, knowing their words will be heard with integrity and treated with the utmost respect.
Who knew listening involved such deep ethical considerations? It's certainly a powerful aspect of building trust.
It truly is. And that brings us to the next vital area we'll explore in our upcoming discussion, listening to learn actively, and how that sharpens our insight.
Looking forward to it. Be sure to join us for that.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Last time, we explored the crucial role of ethical listening. Today, we're diving into a power-packed episode, Listening to Learn. We'll uncover how sharpening your listening skills can unlock a world of knowledge and insight, making you a lifelong learner.
That's right, Alex. It's episode 17, and we're talking about how listening is your direct pipeline to acquiring knowledge and gaining true insight. Think about it. Most of what we learn, whether in a formal setting or just in everyday life, comes through listening.
Exactly. We often think of learning as something that happens in a classroom. But the reality is we are constantly receiving information, and our ability to absorb it hinges on our listening skills. Being a great listener is the foundation of intellectual curiosity and continuous growth. It's about more than just hearing words. It's about actively extracting meaning.
So, how do we go from passively hearing information to actively learning from it? What are the key strategies for listeners who want to maximize their knowledge acquisition?
The first step is to approach every listening opportunity with the goal of learning. This means shifting your mindset. Instead of thinking, what do I need to get out of this? Think, what can I learn from this person or situation? It's a subtle but profound change. Imagine you're at a lecture or a seminar. You're not just there to fill a seat. You're there to absorb new ideas.
That's a great way to put it. So, it's about intention. When you intend to learn, you're already priming yourself to listen differently. What does that look like in practice?
It looks like being fully present. This means minimizing distractions, both external and internal. Put away your phone. Close unnecessary tabs on your computer if you're in an online setting. More importantly, quiet that internal monologue that's already forming a response or judging what's being said. When you're truly present, you're open to receiving information without preconceived notions.
Minimizing internal distractions can be tough. We're always thinking, always processing. How can listeners actively quiet that inner voice?
It involves conscious effort, and sometimes it's about noticing when it happens and gently bringing your attention back. Think of it like training a puppy. When your mind wanders, you don't scold it. You guide it back to the task at hand, listening. Another key is to listen for the core message. What is the speaker really trying to convey? What are the underlying principles or ideas?
So, we're not just listening to the words, but to the meaning behind them. This sounds a lot like what we discussed regarding understanding, not just responding.
Precisely. And to go even deeper, we need to become detectives of information. This involves asking clarifying questions. Not questions that challenge or debate, but questions that seek to better understand. Questions like, could you explain that further? Or what did you mean by X? These questions signal your engagement and your genuine desire to learn.
I like that. Detectives of information. It makes acquiring knowledge sound like an exciting pursuit. So, being present, listening for the core message, and asking clarifying questions are key. Are there other techniques to enhance learning from listening?
Absolutely. One powerful technique is the use of analogies and mental models. When someone explains a complex idea, try to relate it to something you already understand. For instance, if you're learning about a new scientific concept, can you connect it to a process you've observed in nature? Or if you're learning a new business strategy, can you see parallels to how a successful sports team operates?
That's a fantastic way to make abstract ideas concrete and memorable. It's like building a bridge from the known to the unknown.
Exactly. And beyond simply understanding new concepts, effective listening helps us integrate that knowledge into our existing framework. This often involves reflection. After a listening experience, take a few moments to process what you've heard. What are the main takeaways? How does this new information connect with what you already know?
So, it's not just about the intake of information, but also the processing and integration. This is where true insight happens, isn't it?
That's precisely it, Lisa. Insight is born from deeper understanding and the ability to connect disparate ideas. To foster this, actively seek out diverse perspectives. When you listen to people with different backgrounds, experiences, or opinions, you broaden your own understanding of the world. This doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but it does mean being open to hearing their viewpoint and learning from it.
This is so important, especially in today's world where echo chambers can easily form. Actively seeking out differing views through listening is a powerful tool for growth. It requires humility, though, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The know-it-all listener, who believes they already have all the answers, closes themselves off to learning. They listen to confirm their existing beliefs, not to discover new ones. We touched on this briefly in episode 16 about ethical listening, but it's worth revisiting here. True learners are characterized by their intellectual humility. They acknowledge they don't know everything and are eager to fill those gaps.
So, to recap for our listeners, actively listening to learn involves a shift in our intention, being fully present, focusing on the core message, asking clarifying questions, using analogies, reflecting on what we've heard, and seeking diverse perspectives. And underlying all of this is intellectual humility.
You've summarized it perfectly, Lisa. And let's not forget the power of retaining what we learn. Effective listening isn't just about capturing information in the moment, it's about making it stick. This involves actively engaging with the material after the listening session. Take notes, discuss what you've learned with others, try to teach it to someone else. The act of retrieval and explanation solidifies the knowledge in your mind.
Teaching is often said to be the best way to learn. So, by actively listening and then trying to articulate what you've learned, you're reinforcing it. It's a double win.
Exactly. Think about workshops or educational seminars. The ones that incorporate interactive elements, Q&A sessions, and group discussions tend to be the most effective for learning. Why? Because they encourage active listening and engagement, transforming passive reception into active knowledge construction. Even in casual conversations, by listening attentively to stories or experiences shared by others, we gain valuable insights into different aspects of life.
It really highlights how essential listening is for personal and professional development. It's not just a soft skill, it's a fundamental tool for navigating and understanding the world.
It is, and it's a skill that can be honed. By consciously practicing these techniques, being present, seeking understanding, reflecting, and engaging, we could transform every conversation, every lecture, every piece of information we encounter into an opportunity for growth.
So, listeners, the next time you find yourself in a situation where information is being shared, remember to put on your learning hat. Be a detective, a bridge builder, and an integrator. Your capacity for learning is immense, and attentive listening is your key to unlocking it.
Indeed, cultivating the habit of listening to learn means you're never truly stuck. You have a portable, accessible superpower for acquiring knowledge and expanding your horizons, no matter where you are or who you're with. Next episode, we'll explore overcoming the know-it-all listener. Thanks for listening. Welcome back to the Listening Edge. Today, we're tackling a common listener type, the know-it-all.
Oh, the know-it-all. I think we've all encountered someone like that. They always seem to have an answer, often before you've finished your sentence.
Exactly. While it might stem from confidence, the know-it-all listener creates significant barriers. The most obvious is that it stifles genuine conversation. When someone feels lectured, they disengage.
So, it's not just about having the information, but how it's presented. It feels like a performance, not a connection.
Precisely. A know-it-all listener often jumps in with their own experiences or solutions before fully understanding you. This behavior often comes from a belief that their knowledge is superior. It's a subtle arrogance that blocks empathy.
It makes the other person feel invalidated, doesn't it? Like their feelings aren't important enough to be explored.
Absolutely. This listener actively undermines good listening. They're not reflecting, paraphrasing, or embracing silence. Instead, they use perceived superior knowledge as a shield.
A shield or a weapon, I like that. It stops further exploration.
It does. The know-it-all sees conversation as a competition to demonstrate intelligence. They might interrupt or pivot the conversation back to themselves, communicating, my experience is more relevant.
And that erodes trust. If I feel you're just waiting to correct me, why would I share anything vulnerable?
That's a fantastic point. Trust is built on feeling heard. The know-it-all listener builds walls of intellectual superiority, inadvertently saying, I don't need to learn from you because I already know. This is the antithesis of a learning mindset.
So, how can someone who listens like this change? It feels like a deeply ingrained habit.
It takes conscious effort and a perspective shift. The first step is self-awareness, recognizing this pattern. Ask for feedback from trusted friends or pay attention to your conversational habits. Do you consistently offer advice or stories? Do you correct others frequently?
That's hard feedback to accept.
It can be, but it's also liberating. True wisdom isn't knowing everything, but recognizing how much you don't know. Every conversation is an opportunity to learn.
So, shifting the internal monologue from I know this to what can I learn here?
Exactly. This shift naturally leads to behavioral changes. Instead of jumping in with a solution, practice active listening. Ask clarifying questions. Use phrases like, tell me more, or help me understand why.
That's a great way to redirect the conversation back to the speaker, showing genuine interest, not a desire to impress.
Precisely. It's about moving from intellectual dominance to curiosity. Imagine the difference for the speaker. Instead of feeling judged, they feel validated and encouraged to share more deeply.
It's like switching from being a lecturer to a curious student.
A perfect analogy. Embracing silence also plays a huge role. The know-it-all listener is uncomfortable with pauses, feeling compelled to fill them. But those pauses allow deeper understanding to emerge. They give the speaker time to articulate and the listener time to process.
So, rather than seeing a pause as an opportunity to talk, a humble listener sees it as a chance to absorb and reflect.
Precisely. Another strategy is to set a goal before conversation. Aim to learn something new or truly understand the other person's perspective, rather than to impress. This intention will guide your actions.
That's a really actionable tip. Setting an intention beforehand can reframe the interaction.
It truly can. And when you feel the urge to jump in with your own story, pause. Ask yourself, is my contribution truly helpful now? Or am I just trying to prove a point? Often, the most helpful thing is to simply listen.
That self-interruption, that conscious pause, is so powerful. It lets you check your ego at the door.
It really does. Your value as a listener isn't how much you know, but how effectively you help others feel heard. It's shifting focus from what you can say to what you can hear.
And it's recognizing that no one has a monopoly on knowledge. Everyone has unique insights.
Absolutely. The know-it-all listener closes themselves off to this richness. The humble, curious listener opens up to new perspectives and opportunities to learn and connect.
So, to recap, the know-it-all listener creates barriers by appearing arrogant, interrupting, and focusing on demonstrating their own knowledge. This erodes trust and hinders connection.
Right? To overcome this, the key is self-awareness, cultivating humility, and practicing listening skills, asking clarifying questions, embracing silence, and setting intentions to learn. It's moving from intellectual superiority to genuine curiosity.
It's a fundamental shift from wanting to be seen as the smartest person to wanting to be the most connected and understanding person.
A very important distinction. By letting go of the need to always be right, we open ourselves up to truly learning from everyone, enriching our own lives and the lives of those around us.
That's a powerful takeaway. It's about letting go of ego to gain connection and knowledge.
Indeed, this principle of overcoming internal barriers is crucial for building strong relationships and achieving success. Next episode, building rapport through reflective listening. Welcome back to The Listening Edge. Today, we explore validation, the quiet superpower that builds trust.
That's right, Alex. We've covered hearing, understanding, and empathizing. Validation goes a step further. It's acknowledging someone's experience as real and legitimate to them, even if you don't agree. It's fundamental to truly connecting.
Imagine sharing something important, a feeling, a concern, an idea. What do you want most? To feel heard, and for your experience to be seen as valid. You want the other person to grasp that what you're feeling or thinking makes sense for you.
Exactly.
If I'm upset and a friend dismisses it with, "You shouldn't feel that way," or "It's not a big deal," I feel instantly shut down and misunderstood. But if they say, "I can see why you'd be upset about that," it's a game changer. They acknowledge my feelings are real for me without necessarily agreeing with my reaction.
That's validation in action. It's not about agreement. It's about acknowledgement. It communicates, I hear you, and this is your experience, and your experience is valid. It shows respect for their inner world, assuring them, your feelings are okay. Your thoughts make sense within your experience.
So, how do we practically weave validation into our conversations without necessarily agreeing with everything?
It begins with a mindset shift, suspending judgment to understand the other person's perspective. One effective technique is reflecting what you hear, adding acknowledgement. Instead of just "so, you're frustrated," try, "It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated because X happened. I can understand why that would make you feel that way."
So it's adding that "I can understand why" or "that makes sense" component. It's affirming their emotional reality, not necessarily solving their problem.
Precisely. Another way is acknowledging the effort or courage it took to share. Phrases like, "I appreciate you sharing that with me. I know it wasn't easy," or "Thank you for being so open about this," are incredibly validating, especially with vulnerable topics.
That's so vital. It encourages further sharing and builds that essential sense of psychological safety. I remember confiding in a colleague about a tough decision. They listened intently and said, "Wow, that sounds like a really tough situation with no easy answers. It makes sense that you're weighing all these different factors." I felt so much more at ease afterward.
That ease comes from feeling understood, not judged. Validation also means acknowledging feelings without needing to fix them. Sometimes people just need their emotions seen. A simple, "That must have been really difficult," or "I can imagine how upsetting that would be," can be incredibly validating.
So, we're aiming to be present and accepting listeners, meeting people where they are emotionally, rather than becoming instant therapists.
Exactly. Now, it's crucial to remember validation doesn't mean endorsing harmful behavior or agreeing with inaccurate statements. It's about validating the feeling or experience, not necessarily the action or belief. If someone expresses anger, you can validate that anger by saying, "I hear that you're really angry about this," without agreeing that their anger is fully justified.
That distinction is so important. It's easy to mistake validation for agreement. It's more like saying, "Your emotional response to what you perceived is understandable."
Right? If you disagree with their actions or interpretation, you can still validate the underlying emotion. You could say, I understand you're feeling hurt right now because of what happened. From my perspective, this is how I saw it. This separates the feeling from the understanding of the event, enabling a more nuanced conversation.
And by validating their feelings, you keep the door open for them to hear your perspective later. Dismissing their feelings just shuts them down.
Precisely. This is where the magic happens. Validation builds bridges. It lowers defensiveness. When validated, people are more open to dialogue, more willing to consider other viewpoints, and more likely to trust the validator. This is foundational for any healthy relationship, personal or professional.
In personal relationships, think about arguments. When all you want is to be understood, and your partner is just focused on proving they're right, it feels awful. But if they pause and say, okay, I hear you. It sounds like you feel really unheard right now, and that makes sense. The entire dynamic shifts.
It de-escalates the situation immediately, like putting out a small fire before it becomes a wildfire. In leadership, validation is equally powerful. When a leader validates an employee's concerns or effort, even if the outcome wasn't perfect, it fosters loyalty and encourages future initiative. It shows the employee is valued as a person, not just a resource.
So, to recap for listeners, validation acknowledges someone's feelings, thoughts, or experiences as real and legitimate to them. It doesn't require agreement, but demands empathy and a willingness to set aside judgment. Key phrases like, I can see why you feel that way. That sounds difficult. Or it makes sense that you would be underscore, 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 underscore are incredibly useful.
And crucially, it creates a safe space for honest communication. It builds trust, reduces defensiveness, and opens the door for genuine connection. When you validate someone, you're not just hearing them, you're connecting with their humanity. That's a profound and quiet impact.
It truly is. It's about showing respect for another person's internal world. A simple act with a ripple effect far beyond the immediate conversation.
Thank you for joining us for this exploration of validation. It's a powerful tool in your listening arsenal, and we encourage you to practice it mindfully.
Next time, we'll explore listening for opportunities, uncovering hidden potential. You won't want to miss it.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered the quiet impact of validation. Now let's tackle listening for opportunities.
Listening for opportunities. That sounds like a superpower in itself, Alex. So often we listen to respond or just to get through a conversation. But you're saying we can actually hear potential, can't we?
Exactly, Lisa. Think about it. Every conversation, every interaction holds potential. It might be potential for a new idea, a solution to a problem, a collaboration, or even personal growth. Most people are so focused on their own agenda, or even just on understanding the words being said, that they miss the subtle hints, the unspoken needs, and the emerging trends that lie beneath the surface. Attentive listening allows us to uncover these hidden gems.
So, it's not just about hearing what someone is explicitly stating, but also what they're implying or what their situation is suggesting.
Precisely. It's about moving from transactional listening, just exchanging information, to transformational listening, where we aim to understand the deeper context and uncover possibilities. This builds directly on what we've discussed before, like asking impactful questions. When you ask good questions and then really listen to the answers, you start to piece together a fuller picture.
I remember you talking about asking questions that invite exploration. So, listening for opportunities is the active process of taking those answers and looking for what's next.
Yes, it's about actively scanning the conversational landscape for untapped potential. Let's break this down into a few key areas. First, listening for unspoken needs. People often don't articulate all their needs fully. They might complain about a problem, but the underlying need driving the complaint might be unstated.
Like someone saying, my commute is always so stressful, might not just be venting, but subtly expressing a need for a more efficient or a less chaotic way to get to work.
Exactly. And if you're listening for opportunity, you might think, they could benefit from a carpool, or maybe flexible working hours, or even a different mode of transport. The opportunity is there to offer a solution, or at least to understand their pain point profoundly. This is where empathy we discussed earlier really comes into play. Understanding their feelings and their situation helps you identify those unspoken needs.
So, empathy helps us tune into the emotional undercurrent that reveals the unmet need. What's the next area?
The next area is listening for emerging trends. This applies heavily in professional settings, but also in our personal lives. When you're talking to people in a particular industry, or even just observing conversations around you, you start to notice patterns. What are the common challenges people are facing? What new technologies are they excited about? What are the consumer desires that aren't being fully met?
So, if you're in a networking group and several people mention a similar difficulty with a certain type of software, that's a trend you can listen for. The opportunity might be to develop a training session or share a workaround, or even consider a new business venture addressing that gap.
That's a perfect example. It's about connecting the dots between different conversations. You're not just hearing isolated comments. You're listening for a chorus that suggests a direction. This is where a sharp mind and a keen ear, combined with attentiveness, can spot future market needs or service gaps before they become obvious.
It's like being a detective, but instead of solving a crime, you're uncovering a potential business idea or a way to help someone.
Precisely. And don't forget the power of silence we talked about, too. When you create space with silence, people often fill it with more detailed information, or they might even think aloud, revealing more about their needs or a nascent idea. That pause can be a golden opportunity for discovery.
That makes sense. If I'm not rushing to fill the silence, the other person might elaborate, and that elaboration could contain the very opportunity I'm listening for.
Third, we have listening for potential solutions. Often, when people present a problem, they've already thought about some solutions, but maybe they're not quite right or they're incomplete. By listening carefully to their proposed solutions, or even their hesitations about solutions, you can pinpoint areas for improvement or entirely new approaches. We're not aiming to be the listener who thinks they know everything, but rather to be a constructive partner in problem solving.
So if someone says, I tried X, but it didn't work because of Y, we've heard the attempted solution and the obstacle. The opportunity lies in finding an X that doesn't have Y as a problem, or finding a way around Y.
Exactly. It's about building on their efforts. Remember in episode 7, when we discussed asking the right questions? Questions like, what have you tried so far? Or what obstacles did you encounter? Directly set you up to listen for these potential solutions and their inherent challenges.
So, it's a multi-layered process, identifying unspoken needs, recognizing emerging trends, and listening for the seeds of potential solutions within a conversation. It really emphasizes that listening isn't passive at all.
Not all. It's an active, engaged process. And what's the payoff? For leaders, this means identifying new market opportunities, innovative product ideas, or ways to improve team performance by understanding what people truly need to succeed. For individuals, it can mean finding better career paths, discovering unmet needs in your community that you can help address, or even strengthening personal relationships by truly understanding what your loved ones require.
It sounds like listening for opportunities transforms us from passive observers into active agents of change and innovation. It moves us from simply understanding to actively creating possibilities.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. It's about shifting your auditory focus. Imagine you're looking for seashells on a beach. If you're just looking at your feet, you'll miss the beautiful, rare shells further up the sand. Listening for opportunities is like scanning the whole beach, not just the immediate shoreline. You're looking for what's slightly out of the ordinary, what seems promising, what could be valuable.
That's a great analogy. So, To recap for our listeners today, we've discussed how listening for opportunities means tuning into conversations with an intention to uncover hidden potential. This involves listening for, first, unspoken needs, understanding what someone requires beyond their explicit statements. Second, emerging trends, spotting patterns and commonalities that suggest future directions or unmet demands. And third, potential solutions, identifying the building blocks and challenges within existing ideas to forge better outcomes.
And remember, this practice is deeply intertwined with our previous discussions on empathy and asking insightful questions. By truly understanding others and probing deeper, you naturally create the fertile ground where opportunities can sprout. Don't just listen to what's being said, listen for what's not being said, what's bubbling beneath the surface, and what could be. This is how great listeners don't just navigate the world, they actively shape it.
It's about strategic listening, making every conversation a potential stepping stone to something greater.
Absolutely. It's about turning passive hearing into active discovery. And with that, we're bringing this episode to a close.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to The Listening Edge. I'm Alex.
And I'm Lisa. Last time, we uncovered how listening for opportunities can reveal hidden potential.
Today, we're diving into reflective listening, a technique that solidifies understanding and connection. It's about truly grasping the speaker's experience.
Reflective listening. It sounds like mirroring, but more nuanced. How does it build rapport?
You got it. It's a refined form of active listening. You reflect the speaker's thoughts, feelings, and underlying meaning. This creates a powerful sense of being truly heard, which is the bedrock of strong rapport.
So it's like saying, I hear you and I understand how you feel about it.
Precisely. Reflective listening has three key components: reflecting content, reflecting feelings, and reflecting intent.
Let's start with reflecting content. What does that mean?
It means paraphrasing or summarizing what the speaker said in your own words. Instead of, you confirm your understanding. If someone says, I'm really struggling to meet this deadline, and it's causing me a lot of stress, reflecting content would be, so the upcoming deadline is creating significant stress for you because it feels unmanageable right now.
You're not just agreeing, you're demonstrating you've processed the information. You rephrase to ensure you've got the gist.
Exactly. It's like holding up a mirror to their message, allowing them to see if your perception matches their reality. This prevents misunderstandings and makes the speaker feel their message was received accurately. It's a fantastic antidote to the listening to respond trap. You're focused on understanding first.
It's like checking your work. Did I get that right? And it gives the speaker a chance to clarify.
Excellent analogy. Now, for reflecting feelings. This is where we acknowledge the emotions behind the words. People often communicate feelings indirectly.
This can be the harder part, as emotions are complex and sometimes unspoken.
It can be, but it's incredibly powerful. Reflecting feelings signals empathy. If someone expresses frustration, you might say, it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated by that. Or, if they're disappointed, I can hear the disappointment in your voice.
So you're not saying you shouldn't feel that way or jumping to fix it. You're naming and validating the emotion. I see you're feeling X, and that's okay.
Precisely. You create a safe space for them to experience and express their emotions. Validating feelings enormously deepens connection and trust. It moves the conversation from informational to emotionally resonant.
If someone feels their emotions are acknowledged, they'll feel more connected and trusting. It's a sign of genuine care.
Absolutely. And the third component, reflecting intent, can be the most sophisticated. This is about understanding the underlying purpose or need behind what they're saying. What are they really trying to achieve?
This goes beyond surface words and emotions, looking for the why behind their what.
Exactly. Consider, I'm just so tired of this project dragging on. I wish it was over already. Reflecting content might be, you're finding the project length tedious. Reflecting feelings, you're feeling exhausted and impatient. Reflecting intent, however, might be, it sounds like you're really looking for a sense of completion and perhaps a chance to move on to new challenges. Is that right?
Wow, that's a significant difference. You're not just acknowledging weariness, but identifying their desire for closure and forward momentum.
Yes. By reflecting intent, you help the speaker clarify their own goals and show you're invested in understanding their deeper motivations. This is incredibly helpful in problem solving and building collaborative relationships. You show you see their underlying needs and aspirations.
So, to recap, reflective listening involves reflecting content, paraphrasing for understanding, reflecting feelings, acknowledging and validating emotions, and reflecting intent, understanding the underlying purpose or need.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. These elements work together to create a profound sense of being heard. You're not just listening, you're actively participating in the speaker's world, showing them you're present, engaged, and genuinely trying to connect.
It sounds like a way to move from superficial conversation to deeper interaction, fostering the connection that leads to genuine rapport.
It does. Building rapport is fundamental in all areas of life. When people feel that connection, they are more open, more trusting, and more willing to engage. Reflective listening is a master key to unlocking that openness.
What are some common pitfalls when practicing reflective listening?
One is sounding robotic or rehearsed. It should sound natural, not memorized. Another is interrupting or offering solutions too soon. Remember, understanding and connection come first.
So, even though we want to help, sometimes the best help is just to listen and reflect until they feel complete.
Precisely. Also, avoid making assumptions. Frame your reflections as checks for understanding. Phrases like it sounds like, or am I understanding correctly that, are your friends.
That keeps it collaborative and respectful. It's not about being a mind reader, but a diligent interpreter.
Exactly. And be mindful of your own internal barriers, preoccupation, judgment, formulating your response. Those distractions block true reflection. This ties back to overcoming listening barriers.
Right.
It requires conscious effort and practice. It's not just a technique, it's a mindset shift towards true receptiveness.
It truly is. By practicing reflective listening, we become more empathetic, understanding, and effective at building bridges. We create an environment where people feel safe to express themselves, knowing they will be heard and understood.
So, our listeners should consciously practice reflecting the content, feelings, and intent of what others share. It's a powerful way to deepen understanding and build authentic connections.
That's the essence. Master reflective listening, and you'll establish genuine rapport, make people feel valued, and solidify your place as a great listener. Remember, great listeners win life, and reflective listening is a cornerstone of that strategy.
This has been incredibly insightful, Alex. It elevates active listening to a whole new level.
Glad you found it helpful, Lisa. For everyone listening, we encourage you to try this out. Pick a conversation this week and practice reflecting. You might be surprised at the depth of connection you build.
Next episode, we'll explore how being a listener can turn you into a trusted confidant.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for joining us on The Listening Edge. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we explored how reflective listening helps build rapport. Today, we're diving deeper into what makes a listener a trusted confidant.
We've covered active listening skills. But what transforms an effective listener into someone others feel completely safe confiding in?
It's about creating an environment where people feel secure enough to share their deepest thoughts and secrets. It's about earning their trust, built on everything we've discussed.
So, this is the highest level of listening, where people disclose not just information, but their true feelings, fears, and hopes, knowing it's safe with you?
Precisely. Becoming a trusted confidant through listening hinges on radical acceptance and unwavering discretion. Without these, people won't share sensitive information.
So, radical acceptance means accepting the speaker and what they're sharing without trying to change them or their situation in that moment.
Yes, it's acknowledging their feelings and perspective as valid for them. Like hearing someone's story about a mistake without saying, I told you so. It's empathy in action, non-judgmental.
And unwavering discretion means absolute confidentiality. If secrets are shared, they must stay shared.
Absolutely. This is non-negotiable. A confidant doesn't gossip or hint at what they've heard. It's about actively safeguarding the speaker's privacy. Breaking this trust closes the door on future confidences.
So, it's not just holding information, but actively protecting it. That's a big responsibility.
It is, and it leads to consistency. Trust is built over time through repeated positive experiences. Someone learns they can consistently rely on you to listen without judgment and to be discreet.
Consistency builds reliability. People know what to expect. You won't weaponize their words or dismiss their feelings.
Exactly. And this reliability fosters psychological safety. When someone feels safe, they feel secure to express themselves, take risks, and be vulnerable, knowing their communication will be met with respect.
This psychological safety allows people to delve into deeper, more vulnerable topics. It's real connection.
Now, how do we cultivate this? It's rooted in our skills. Empathic listening is vital, understanding the speaker's emotional state and perspective. Reflecting that back, like, it sounds like you're feeling incredibly frustrated, shows you understood them on an emotional level.
That showing of understanding, that validation, is a huge part of making someone feel safe. It says, your feelings are valid and I'm here with you.
Precisely. Asking open-ended, non-leading questions encourages their exploration. Instead of, you were angry, weren't you? Try, how did that make you feel? Or what was going through your mind then?
Right, you're giving them space to discover their own answers, not directing them.
And the power of silence, which we covered, is crucial. A confidant embraces pauses, allowing for deeper processing and revelation without pressure.
So, silence isn't awkward, but a space for deeper processing and sharing. It's an invitation.
Indeed, overcoming listening barriers means being mindful of our own biases. If you're judging or preparing your response while they speak, you're not being a confidant. Suspend your own agenda.
That takes real self-awareness, noticing when our own internal chatter gets in the way of being present for someone else.
Absolutely. And remember, listening to understand, not just to respond. This is its ultimate application. A confidant listens to fully grasp the speaker's world, without an immediate need to fix or solve.
So, any offer of advice or solutions comes much later, and only if requested. The initial act is to be present with their experience.
Exactly. Sometimes, advice can feel like a dismissal. A true confidant knows that often, someone just needs to be heard and validated. They need a witness to their experience.
That's a powerful reframe, bearing witness.
It is radical acceptance, discretion, consistency, empathic understanding, thoughtful questioning, embracing silence, self-awareness, and the focus on understanding. These combine to create deep trust. This is how you become someone's safe space.
It seems being a trusted confidant is the culmination of mastering all the listening skills we've discussed. It's where active, empathic, and culturally sensitive listening all come together with a sense of responsibility.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. It's the integration of those techniques, applied with intention and integrity, that builds this most valuable of relationships. You become a beacon of support and a safe harbor.
And that's an invaluable role. It's the ultimate expression of connection, built word by word, pause by pause, and moment by moment of genuine listening.
So, to recap, being a trusted confidant through listening is about first, radical acceptance, hearing and validating without judgment. Second, unwavering discretion, safeguarding confidences absolutely. Third, consistency, building reliability through repeated trustworthy interactions. And fourth, psychological safety, creating an environment where vulnerability is safe.
These pillars are supported by our core listening skills: empathy, thoughtful questioning, embracing silence, managing internal barriers, and prioritizing understanding. When consistently applied, you become that person others naturally gravitate towards.
Thank you for that insightful summary, Lisa. It really brings home the depth of what it means to be a truly trusted listener.
It's been a fascinating journey exploring these facets.
And we have just one episode left in our series. Next episode, Sustaining the Listening Edge, Lifelong Practice. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we discussed building rapport through reflective listening. Now let's tackle episode 23, Listening to Inspire Action. This is where our previous lessons truly begin to make a tangible impact.
It's exciting to reach this point, Alex, where listening isn't just about comprehension, but about influence. It's like moving from understanding a recipe to actually baking a cake that makes people feel good.
Exactly, Lisa. The core of inspiring action through listening is uncovering what truly motivates someone. It's about understanding their inner drivers, their passions, their personal goals, their values, even their underlying concerns. When you listen deeply, you get a glimpse of these.
So, instead of telling someone what to do, we're learning to understand why they might want to do it themselves.
Precisely. Picture this. You want to encourage a colleague to take on a challenging new project. If you've listened, you might know they're keen to expand their technical skills. You can then frame the project not just as a task, but as a fantastic opportunity for them to develop that exact skill. This makes the action feel aligned with their own ambitions rather than a burden. We're essentially helping them connect the action to their personal compass.
That sounds much more effective. It personalizes the motivation. It turns a generic request into an opportunity for personal growth.
And the foundation for all of this is authentic listening. If you're just waiting for your turn to speak or planning how to inspire, people will perceive that. Genuine inspiration arises from a place of curiosity and true connection. When you hear someone express a desire or a frustration, and you reflect that back with empathy, you build trust. That trust is what makes them receptive to your encouragement.
So, the validation we explored in episode 19 becomes really important here. Letting someone know you've truly heard and understood their feelings or aspirations.
Absolutely, Lisa. Validation is key. When individuals feel genuinely heard, they're far more open to exploring new paths or considering different perspectives. Imagine a team member feels overwhelmed with their current responsibilities. Simply assigning them more work will likely lead to resistance. However, if you listen, acknowledge their feeling of being stretched thin, and then collaboratively brainstorm solutions and how a new initiative might fit, you're inspiring them to be part of the solution, not just the recipient of a directive.
That collaborative approach is powerful. Inspiring action through listening isn't about dictating, it's about partnership.
Indeed, it's about enabling. Another profound way listening inspires action is by helping individuals recognize their own capabilities. Sometimes people are so focused on their immediate challenges, they struggle to see a different future. Through thoughtful questions and attentive listening, You can help them articulate that future for themselves.
We discussed asking the right questions back in episode 7. So, it's about using those skills to help people see what they might be overlooking?
Exactly. A well-placed question, stemming from deep listening, can be far more motivating than any statement. Instead of saying, you should really consider that leadership role, a listener might say, after hearing them discuss their career goals, given what you've expressed about wanting to take on more responsibility, how do you envision yourself moving toward a leadership position in the coming year? This prompts self-reflection and hopefully initiative.
That's a brilliant example. It empowers them to find their own answer and take ownership of the next step.
Precisely. And this connects back to understanding core needs and aspirations. When you listen to identify fundamental needs, whether it's for recognition, autonomy, growth, or a sense of purpose, you can then present opportunities in a way that speaks directly to those needs. This alignment is a powerful motivator.
So, to recap what we've just discussed, listening to inspire action means truly understanding someone's motivations, goals, and needs. Then, using that understanding to connect desired actions to those internal drivers. This involves validation, collaborative problem solving, and asking insightful questions that help them see their own potential.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. Now, how do we actively practice this? It begins with genuine curiosity. Approach conversations with the intent to truly understand the other person's viewpoint, not just to persuade them or get them to agree with you.
So, setting aside our own immediate agenda to be fully present with their experience?
Yes. And then, it's crucial to use paraphrasing and summarizing, as we covered in episode 4, to confirm accurate understanding. When you say something like, so, if I understand correctly, your main concern about this proposal is feeling unsupported. Is that right? You're not just checking for comprehension. You're acknowledging the emotional heart of their concern. This level of recognition is incredibly impactful.
That feels like it creates a safe space for them to respond, yes, exactly, or to expand on their thoughts because they feel truly heard.
Absolutely. And this leads to another vital element, acknowledging their strengths and celebrating their past achievements. When you listen to someone's journey, you'll hear about their past successes, their resilience, their unique talents. Highlighting these, especially when encouraging them toward a new challenge, can significantly boost their confidence. Remember how effectively you handled that complex situation? That same ingenuity will be invaluable here.
That's like reminding them of their own inherent capabilities, which you've learned about through your listening. It's specific and relevant praise, not generic flattery.
Exactly. It's about fostering belief in their own abilities. And related to building belief, recall episode 21 on rapport through reflective listening? That's the bedrock. When you reflect back not just the content, but the emotional tone behind their words, you forge a deep connection. This connection makes them more receptive to your encouragement and more confident in their capacity to take on new tasks.
So it's a holistic skill, then.
It's a blend of deep understanding, empathy, validation, and then skillfully using that gained insight to frame a path forward that resonates personally with them.
It truly is. And to underscore the difference, consider how this contrasts with typical persuasive speaking or issuing commands. Persuasion relies on arguments. Commands are direct orders. Inspiring action through listening, however, is about empowering an individual to want to take action by connecting it to their core values and aspirations.
It's a more nuanced, deeply impactful approach, and I imagine leads to more lasting motivation because the drive comes from within the person, not external pressure.
Precisely. And this principle applies everywhere, in leadership roles, in personal relationships, in mentoring, and even in motivating ourselves. When you listen to your own needs and aspirations, you can inspire yourself to make positive changes. It's a universal technique.
So, for our listeners who want to put this into practice, what's a practical first step they could try after this episode?
I'd recommend selecting one conversation this week with a primary goal of truly understanding the other person's underlying motivation for something, rather than aiming for a specific outcome from that conversation. Ask open-ended questions, Listen attentively without interruption, and make an effort to paraphrase their core feelings and desires. See what insights emerge. Then consider how you might connect a small, positive action to that discovered motivation.
That sounds like an excellent, actionable exercise. Focus on discovering the why and then gently guiding them toward a personal how.
Yes, because when you genuinely understand someone, you unlock their potential. And by listening with the intent to inspire, you become a catalyst for positive motion in their lives and, consequently, in the broader world. This is where listening transforms from a mere skill into a powerful tool for positive influence and impact.
It really is that distinctive advantage that great listeners possess, the ability not just to connect, but to meaningfully move people forward.
Thank you for joining us for this insightful episode on listening to inspire action. We've explored how understanding a person's motivations, needs, and aspirations empowers us to communicate in ways that foster positive action. We've highlighted the importance of validation, reflective listening, and asking insightful questions to help individuals recognize their own potential. Remember, true inspiration is born from genuine connection and deep understanding. Next episode, Sustaining the Listening Edge, Lifelong Practice. Welcome back to The Listening Edge. This is our final episode, the very last one in our series. We've explored so many incredible ways to become better listeners.
And we've seen how crucial listening is in our relationships, leadership, and in navigating those tricky, high-stakes conversations. It truly feels like we've covered a vast landscape of what it means to be a great listener.
We have, Lisa. And as we wrap up this journey, our focus today is on sustaining this momentum. Becoming a great listener isn't a destination. It's a continuous practice. It's about maintaining that listening edge throughout your life. So how we do that? How do we ensure these skills don't fade after the series ends?
That's the big question, Alex. I think for me, the takeaway is that it's about conscious effort. It's not something that happens passively. It requires us to be deliberate about how we approach conversations. Remember we talked about active listening being beyond just hearing? That's the core of it, intentionally engaging.
Exactly. And that intentional engagement involves a few key habits. The first, and perhaps most fundamental, is to prioritize presence. This means truly being there in the moment. When someone is speaking, your primary focus should be on them, not on what you're going to say next, or what's on your to-do list, or even that notification buzzing on your phone.
Presence means putting away distractions, both physical and mental. It's like clearing a space in your mind for the other person's words and feelings. It's easy to nod along while our minds are racing, but genuine presence means our attention is truly anchored to the conversation.
Absolutely. And building on that presence is consistent practice. We covered so many techniques. Paraphrasing, which is like holding up a mirror to someone's words to ensure understanding. Summarizing, which is like offering a concise overview of what's been shared. And asking open-ended questions, which are like keys that unlock deeper insights. These aren't just one-off skills. They need to be exercised regularly.
So it's like going to the gym for your listening muscles? You don't just go once and expect to be fit. You have to keep showing up. I found myself consciously trying to paraphrase more, and it really did change how I understood what people were saying.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. And to keep those muscles strong, we need to seek feedback. How do we know if we're improving? Sometimes we might think we're listening perfectly, but the other person might feel unheard.
That feels a bit vulnerable, asking for feedback on listening. What kind of feedback are we talking about?
It can be subtle. It might be observing how comfortable others are sharing with you over time. Do they open up more? Do they seem to trust you? You can also, more directly, ask questions like, did I understand you correctly on that point? Or is there anything else I can do to better understand your perspective? This opens the door for gentle correction or confirmation. Being open to hearing about your listening can itself be a form of validation for the speaker.
That makes sense. It's about creating a continuous loop of improvement. And I also think it's important to cultivate curiosity. Remember, we talked about listening to learn? If we approach every conversation with a beginner's mind, eager to discover something new, we're naturally going to listen better.
Curiosity is a powerful antidote to being a listener who thinks they know it all. When you're genuinely curious, you're not trying to prove you already know the answer. You're seeking to understand the answer from the speaker. It shifts the dynamic entirely. It means asking why and how, not to challenge, but to genuinely grasp.
And this ties directly into empathy, which we covered so deeply. To truly sustain our listening edge, we must make a consistent effort to practice empathic listening. This means not just hearing the words, but trying to understand the feelings and perspectives behind them. It's stepping into their shoes.
Empathy is the bridge that connects us. When we listen empathetically, we build trust and strengthen relationships, the foundation of connection. This isn't always easy, especially when emotions are high or the topic is difficult, but navigating those challenging exchanges requires advanced empathy.
And remember the power of silence? Maintaining our listening edge also means embracing pauses, allowing space for deeper thought and expression, rather than rushing to fill every silence. Those pauses are not empty voids, they are fertile ground for meaningful communication.
Precisely. Silence gives the speaker time to gather their thoughts and can encourage them to elaborate further. It signals that you're not just waiting for your turn to speak, but actively giving them the space to be heard.
So, to recap what we've just discussed for maintaining our listening edge, prioritize presence, engage in consistent practice, seek feedback, cultivate curiosity, and consistently practice empathic listening, all while bravely embracing the power of silence. This sounds like a solid roadmap.
It is. And let's also not forget the initial episodes, tuning into the unseen superpower of listening and understanding why listening is so hard. Recognizing our own tendencies to fail at hearing is the first step to improvement. It's about self-awareness. Are we easily distracted? Are we quick to judge? Identifying these personal barriers is crucial for ongoing development.
And what about our goals? We talked about listening for opportunities. If we want to continue growing, we need to actively listen for those chances to learn, to connect, to solve problems, and to inspire action. Listening isn't just passive reception, it's an active force that can drive positive change.
You're absolutely right. It's about moving from being a passive recipient to an active participant in communication. Reflective listening is a fantastic tool for building that rapport and ensuring clarity. It's like a continuous dialogue where you're not just hearing, but actively reflecting back to confirm understanding and foster connection.
It's fascinating how each episode builds on the last. We started with the fundamental why and how of listening, and now we're at the point of sustained practice. It feels like a complete arc for the series. And the overarching message, Alex, that great listeners win life, really resonates.
It does. Because when you listen well, you build stronger relationships, you lead more effectively, you learn more, you empathize more deeply, you diffuse conflicts, and you uncover opportunities. You become a trusted confidant. All of these elements contribute to a richer, more successful, and more fulfilling life.
So, to all our listeners who have joined us on this journey, thank you. Thank you for dedicating your time and attention to developing this incredible skill. Remember, like any mastery, it requires ongoing commitment. Be present, practice diligently, stay curious, be empathetic, and don't shy away from the power of a well-timed pause.
This is at the end of our series, The Listening Edge. We hope we've equipped you with the knowledge and the motivation to not just be good listeners, but to be truly exceptional ones. Continue to hone your skills, to be the person who truly hears, understands, and connects. Because great listeners, indeed, win life.
Thanks for listening to this series.